I'm so sorry if I did. Okay,
I don't bring anything, let me see it though, I don't know what it is, I wouldn't know what I'm supposed to do with it.
Okay, so you are
This is the last.
Yeah, okay.
There's two right there.
So we go over here.
So,
Visitor score has to end in 8.
there's 2 pages here that.
Okay, I see what you do.
So
Okay,
Patrick
and this
has
is for,
a text
okay.
message to
And how much is
Sarah.
it, 20?
Sarah was
I'll
Yep, yep.
send
to
Georgia.
see if she can reprint it.
He's here
for
when
us,
I'm not, well, I could,
or we just wipe these out.
Don't worry
we're
about
trying to
it.
figure
I know,
out.
I had to look too.
Right.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay, I'll figure it out. I don't see how to get it to, yeah.
So those
It
would
changed.
not have
Is that
to
what
be
she said?
signed before the meeting anyway, right?
Well, we just need to sign these and.
Yeah, I know, you're never here anymore.
He leaves.
You've been
So
gone,
he'll
I
probably
saw
be
you outside.
every other week.
I saw you
Oh,
outside,
here.
Yeah, okay.
oh, when you're putting the stuff up in the front
So
yard.
I can sign it.
Oh,
Okay.
We were cutting
So this is
salary
one.
Except
stuff.
we won't be able to sign those
I
unless
see that we did
I
that.
gotta
answer,
wait in here,
right?
yes.
I saw your pickleball back in there.
All
but I-
the,
Where is it?
you know,
Right
she
there?
had trees growing
So you-
out of her foundation.
Yes,
by
so
her
you can look through
south
those
side
and
house,
find where
her
you
house is ours.
need to sign, and
By
these
the
are the last two I
garage.
need to ask.
4 trailer pulls.
Oh my gosh.
And that's more work than I
You're
ever
planning
would.
on
This is Patrick.
Patrick is.
But George is really good.
I never go that way.
Okay.
Well,
I always go the other way.
Now I
well,
forgot.
yeah,
Okay, I can
But it
give
was-
you a copy.
I'll have to go
Okay.
through.
and she thanked us, you
Yeah,
know, but-
they're
I'll
at,
have to go through and look at it.
they're
Gas
all
station.
quick spots. If the evidence puts it in.
Did you not have any signature spots on these?
No, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I will look at that in a few minutes. It is now 6:01 PM.
Wait a second, let me get Dave on the phone.
Yes. As soon as we get Dave on the phone, we'll start.
Yep, sounds good to me.
Chief, talk with you for a few minutes outside? Good.
How's everybody been?
Good. What did you fly back in?
I've been here now since the 10th,
Oh,
so,
you've been here a little bit.
yeah, like,
You got 567, excuse me, 670-2553.
That's what I have, but it didn't look familiar what he told me to call him on.
Oh,
it's okay.
that's what I normally text.
All right, we'll try it and see what he says. He's
Okay.
not there.
Is this how like I attended meeting through this phone right here?
No,
Oh, I said, like, is there a reason I?
it was actually through a cell phone.
Hey, I just wanted to make sure that we had you. Okay. Yep, no problem.
Make sure it's all in order.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Dave. We're going to call the meeting to order, and we're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us, Dave. I'm going to turn this around a little bit and allow you to speak to everybody. We're going to do a roll call vote because you are not here this evening in person. But before we go any further, has everyone had an opportunity to look at the agenda, and I would look for a motion to approve same.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Dave, Melissa made the motion and Marcus seconded the motion to approve the agenda. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
You vote no, Dave? No, aye. Aye. Okay, Marcus, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
All yes. And it has been approved. And now it's time for public input. Yes.
South Dakota Public Broadcasting is looking for 4 to 5 citizens of Alcester to help them look at how the news is brought through South Dakota Public Broadcasting. It's going to be a 1 hour long Zoom meeting. It's going to be next Wednesday at 1 o'clock. If anyone is interested in sharing their insights about South Dakota Public TV, South Dakota Public Radio, and their idea how they can better serve the news needs of South Dakotans, just let me know and I'll get you the material. It's a page and a half of instructions and how to do it. And there's a $50, I think either a gift certificate or an actual piece of some cash. I'm not sure. But they have a grant and they're trying to particularly focus on Alcester, helping them determine news in South Dakota.
And you said that was Wednesday,
Next Wednesday the 30th at 1 o'clock.
1 p.m.
And just, again, a Zoom meeting.
Did you get all that, Dave?
Is there a link for it?
You have to let me know, and then I would get it to you. Yes.
All right, is there any other public input?
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I just have Monday Night Football books available to purchase if anybody needs one, wants one. They're for the chamber, $20 donation. You can win every week.
You can win every week, or like me now. Yes, Marcus, you had some input?
Yes, sorry. The dump was left open again on Sunday. And so I just think that this highlights another reason why we probably will have to evaluate changing the lock and then coming up with a better way of keeping the people we allow to go out there while it's unsupervised, keeping them responsible, because that's just a tort waiting to happen.
Understood.
Were you out there something?
Me? No, we went out, we didn't get a key. We only went out when it was open, no. We went out Thursday night and then Saturday morning. I didn't think we were giving keys out anyway.
No, we are not.
So how are they getting in? Old keys?
That's a possibility,
Then maybe we
or it
need
is
to change it
also a possibility that maybe it didn't get locked.
the night before.
Well, it was like held open, so like somebody had set it up so that way it could not close, like it was being held open by a thing. So somebody clearly like unlocked it and then purposely made it so it was to stay open for while they were, I'm assuming, coming and going, which is something that we also need to make sure that even if the people who do have keys, if they're going to use it, they have to close it when they're not there.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, I do have input. A couple things. Website, I would like a November 1st deadline to have the website, the city, official city website up and running. I would like to see the staff, the city office staff, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, with no doors locked, and someone to always get the phone. It's disconcerting to call the city offices and get a recording. I don't like that. That's essentially everything that I have for input.
what times did you say?
I'm sorry.
Sorry. What times did you say?
8 to 5,
When did you call and we weren't here?
Friday, a week ago, Friday.
Do you know what time?
It was in the afternoon. So it needs to be manned, and over the lunch hour, the staff probably should take staggered lunch hours so we have it manned at all times.
A week ago Friday, weren't you gone?
Yeah. I believe that the finance officer was gone and the assistant finance officer was here. However, she might have been
I
indisposed.
probably went to lunch because I was on my own.
Or the restroom, or was it
Or
another line?
possibly
or-
indisposed in the restroom.
Well, I'm just saying that we're operating, the city as a business, we need to operate it as a business and keep it manned as much as we can.
As much as we can, true.
Yep.
So was it just a one-time thing, or is this a consistent
No, it's
thing?
more than once.
Did you call more than once on that Friday?
No, I didn't. Once I got the recording, I didn't figure. And I do have a response to the email that I got.
What do you, what?
That was a global email that was sent. So
Can't, I have
Pretty
no
hum-
idea what you're talking about.
it was a global email that the mayor sent to everybody. And I'm just giving him my response. But other than that, as far as input, I think that's everything I have at this point.
I don't necessarily have so much public input as just input for the use of providing it, but it's probably some stuff that we're going to have to discuss in future meetings and probably act on, but I've got, since we started this process regarding the sanitation upgrades, so far I've gotten 3 things from the DENR. So, and one of them is just a signed copy of a document. So some of it's not necessarily all that important, but some of it does point to some of the information that our engineer has provided us, saying that some of the stringent or even more stringent guidelines for clean water are coming, and they are coming, and they're getting pretty strict, or they're going to get more strict as we go along. So we still have 5 minutes to wait before we do the public hearing on the variance.
I have a quick question, sorry, I'm just gonna take it back to Vickie's comment about the website, and you wanted to set an official date for?
November 1st, to have it up and running.
How would we go about setting an official date to just require it to do that? Do we need to pass a resolution that makes it so that's when our expectation is, or is us just saying right here, right now, that we want to, like, maybe we should have a discussion about when a reasonable time to get that thing up and running is?
Seems like we already had a date set, I don't remember what it was.
That was before our move.
Do you remember what the date was? I don't remember.
I'm sorry, I don't know either. I didn't know we were gonna be talking about this tonight, so.
The website has been pushed off since 2014.
I'm aware of that, but
Yeah,
it seems
so
like
which is
we
why
had,
I
we
think-
had a date
Yeah,
set.
yeah.
That's why I
but
want
I'm
to bring
just-
it back and have like a, maybe we should set another date and just be like, this is it.
We can do that, but it's gonna have to be on the agenda.
Yeah, but like, so.
We can have an
Do we need a
emergency, if I recall, we can have an emergency addition for an emergency vote. I don't know if that constitutes
I'm not sure.
that.
I
Emergency.
wouldn't say this is.
Yeah, I-
an-
don't know
But
if it
we're
needs a-
talking about getting notices up and stuff, and we don't have a website.
All right, how long will it take to get it up and going?
I will do everything in my power to meet your November 1st deadline. It may not have all the bells and whistles on it. It'll be a working, evolving
I mean, as long as you can post
agendas,
Yeah.
minutes,
the notices and
ordinances.
stuff, yeah. And I think that's, at least as a beginning, is fine.
That's a start.
Yeah.
I'll accept that as a start.
So agendas, minutes, ordinances by November
Notices.
1st.
That sounds good, sorry. I just wanted to not let that die. If it's going to become a recurring issue.
It has been
Yeah. That's what I gathered. I'm sorry.
Be right back.
You got all that, Dave?
Yes,
Okay,
and I agree with you. We can't vote on anything tonight unless it's on the agenda.
right. Unless it is a true emergency, that's true. So we will wait for that. I do have some paperwork here that is going to need to be signed. However, some of it deals with the Plan Development District information, and unfortunately, 2 of the documents are not 100% accurate yet, so we're going to have to wait with that as well. Until we may have to reorder our agenda, but until we get a definitive answer on these two documents right here. So, I'm just waiting another 45 seconds, excuse me, and then we'll start the public hearing for the variance. It is now 6:15, and we will have the public hearing on the variance regarding Sunnyside LLC Rob Huber, and I believe Mr. Huber is here tonight.
Yes.
Basically, when all is said and done, after discussion, what we will be looking for will be a motion to grant a 4-foot variance from that 25-foot standard setback on the south side of the property line. Is that right, Rob?
That's correct.
I know while I was here earlier today, a gentleman was here, I don't know who it was, came in and he had asked a couple of questions about it. And once he found out that all we were talking about is 4 feet of that 25-foot setback. So the building is still going to remain on Rob's property. It's just going to be within that 25 feet of the south side, of the south boundary.
It's actually, it's realistically, it's 22.7 feet. So realistically, we're talking about 2.3 feet. And it just helps the building. If you're less than 30 feet away from the other building, it's hard to get the cars in and around and turn out. So that's why I'm asking for it.
Mr. Nelson,
Yes, ma'am.
this isn't going to be another one of those situations where they need a CUP instead of variance, is it?
No,
Is variance appropriate?
I don't believe so. I think the variance is appropriate, that's actually what I'm looking for. I do think we should probably go through factors in 15.04 to discuss whether or not he meets enough of them or any of them, which I'm assuming he will, in order to qualify for variance. And I were thinking the same thing, Melissa.
I have a problem with the permitting process. On one part of the building permit, it says it doesn't need a variance. We don't have a footprint, a lot positioning. We don't have a document for that. These documents that we have been provided, drawings, they're not well marked. They appear to come from 2019, and in 2019 you should have known the process or should have known the layout well enough where it wouldn't have caused created a problem. The other thing that bothers me is that digging was allowed to commence, and I don't like what I saw back behind one of the buildings because it appears that it's undermining the ground underneath that building. And anything happens with that building during the digging or whatever, like I said, I have a problem with that. The other thing is that the movement of the vehicles with the other building being present, should have gotten a traffic pattern established, whether to get trucks in or out. And that's something that we wouldn't necessarily know, the owner of the establishment or the functioning property would know. That should have been all taken into consideration. I find it grossly lacking. I'm not happy with the it appears that, who drew it up? Scott Lumber did the drawings. Again, I'm uncomfortable with some of the drawings. They're not in consecutive order. And like I said, the footprint of where that building is actually going to be, an aerial view that doesn't cut it. Like I said, the the zoning requirements were set out prior to the building permit was available. And I don't see where an emergency variance is warranted.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
David Larsen, I have a question. Is there be some kind of retaining wall on the south side of that to hold back that earthen area, and what will that wall be made of if there is one?
Hold on a second. I have a specific site layout that shows the building, the existing building. I don't understand.
I'm looking for a drawn footprint of the existing building with relationship to the proposed building. I don't see one.
I don't know if you missed the copy or whatever. I had all that down on the sheets.
Well, the sheets I've got are not consistent. I've got an A2 and an A3 and then a hodgepodge of other stuff that's just, to be quite frank and blunt, just lines.
So the question my alderman had that was online is, will there be a retaining wall on the south side?
We're planning to do one right now, but if it doesn't justify it, we probably wouldn't. If the slope isn't as bad, I probably wouldn't put it in. But I'm planning on either probably pouring a concrete wall or putting like a block retaining wall on there right now.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. From the way that looks to me, I think a wall would be
Well,
required.
you gotta remember, I over excavated by 2 feet and I'm filling it back in with 2 feet of good solid material now. So if you see it now, it looks a lot different. You know, it's built up another 2 feet, so it's considerably different during construction. I've got some string lines out there that you can sort of see that that's gonna be the elevation of the base. And then you got the concrete on top of it, of course, as well. So,
And this alderman is out of town, so
okay. No, I
that's why she's
understand.
on.
I understand.
I haven't seen it for a week, so, sorry.
No, that's fine.
So the need for the extra 2 feet is for the vehicles in between the two? You want to space it out?
Yeah, it makes it really tight.
Catch them, yeah.
If you got 2 buildings that are in, we own a lot of storage facilities, and if you do it less than 30, you have problems of people running into the buildings, backing up and hitting certain things. So,
Is this a residential zone or is it?
It abuts a residential zone.
He is,
I can't.
his
We're
property,
Can't picture
his
the-
property
is
is
it industrial?
industrial. It's just one lot that's industrial. Right here, everything else around it is residential.
Dan? I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
Have the adjacent lot owners been contacted, and are they in agreement with this variance?
That's a good question.
I can probably answer that.
Yes.
I got notified today that there was a variance question, and the people that own the house next to me, I told them. So there was no adequate notification that there was an issue.
It is a 2 whatever foot variance an issue?
And my idea is no. I'm objecting to the way I was notified, and maybe a watershed issue. I talked to the man before he started the work, and I said, my building is right on the line and even over a little bit. And I'm gonna work with you. What do you need to do? So the variance is not the big issue in my book. The people that are out of state that were not notified at all, they're quite upset also.
Okay, thank you.
So you're looking in the industrial area?
Yeah, is that what this is in? Is this in the industrial zone?
Yes.
Okay, then it is a permitted use, and so the only issue is whether or not a variance should be granted based upon the factors in 15.04.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Who's responsible for notifying the property owners about the variance?
The city.
I don't know the answer to that. Do you have any idea?
In what context?
You're talking about the adjacent property owners, the property owners that
City.
would be affected by said variance? Is that what you're talking about, Dave?
Yeah, who is responsible for telling them? I think Tom, I'm pretty sure it was Tom was talking, he said he would just notify today. I don't think that's very timely notice. I was wondering who was supposed to be notifying those people.
It was in the paper.
And there's a big sign out there that says variance.
The abutting property owners have a direct relationship, and they should be notified in writing by the city.
Yeah, I never walked by and seen a sign. I didn't walk down the street or drive down the street, so I never seen it. I'm out of state most of the time. Oh, I'm sorry if I'm speaking out of turn, but
That's all right.
If they're going to vary, the person
just-
needs to be notified so they can come in and present.
I get notice. What I'm asking is, did you just quote something that is like an obligation by statute?
It's,
Or just something that you think is best practice?
no, it's something that's been practiced in the past.
That was my
We also have Mr. Andrews here, I'm sure he might have some.
As far as I'm aware, the way you have to publish things for public hearings is if you have a website, on your website, this is all at least 10 days ahead of time, you have to have it physically appear on the website or physically appear in the newspaper or the sign physically appear on site. So it's generally a posting at City Hall, in the newspaper, on site. There's, as far as I'm aware, there's no requirement in state law that you send every neighbor a letter, which probably is a good best practice. It's just not a written into state requirement. You can certainly require more, just not less than state law. If you wanted to amend yours to include that requirement, you certainly could.
And I did on September 10th, hang a notice at the bank. I hung a notice at the post office. I hung a notice here and on the property.
I concur with Mr. Andrews, and our specific zoning ordinance requires that, I agree that it's a best practice, but it simply requires that 10 days prior to the date of the public hearing, an authorizing official shall notify landowner by mail. So this is the landowner that is petitioning. Notify by mail, post notices of public hearing at the city office on the lot subject to the proposed variance in conformance with 1144.4 and on the city's website, if we have one, shall publish notice of public hearing in the legal newspaper of the city.
So it was supposed to be mailed out.
To the applicant.
So we had to notify the person wanting.
Shall notify the landowner by mail. It doesn't say adjacent landowner, so it's referring to the applicant.
It's so you don't schedule a hearing and, so they know when their hearing is, you just don't like tuck it in there and they don't know and don't show up and.
I know when I bought my home back 18 years ago, my garage was the overhang a little bit, and I have very little overhang. It was on a city property, so before they would give me a loan for my house, I had to get a variance in order to do that. At that time, I had to go around to all my neighbors and have them
Sign
agree
off.
that they'd sign off on them having no issue, which, you know, that garage had been sitting there for decades and nobody had a problem with it. And I understand the need for variances. I guess my main concern over here would be that, you know, that people that have that adjacent property don't have their building undermined, that they would, maybe it's best that they put in a retaining wall.
Sam, is there an administrative rule I'd seen one, but it didn't apply specifically to this type of case.
Are you talking
An
about
administrative rule
a
that comes
state
in.
administrative rule?
Uh-huh.
I can't say for certain without looking it up, Vicki. I can tell you, and I'd invite comment from Mr. Andrews since we've got him here and he's real smart. I'm not aware of administrative rule generally applying to municipal government. There's not a whole lot found in that.
The one I found had to do with county,
Yeah.
an administrative rule.
I'm not,
That
nothing's
dealt with
come to
this.
mind, but I can certainly peruse the ARs if you want me to real quick.
But like I said, our building permit, in my opinion, is a little sloppy in the way it's handled.
All right, I'd like to say a few things about this building permit. Initially, Rob Huber came into our office, told me what his plan was. So he came in and he was researching, he had the building permit in his possession, not signed, but as he was gathering his information, what he was going to build, the size he was going to build, where it was going to need to be on the lot. He came into our office, obtained the building permit. At that time, he did not need a variance. As he started the dig process, and I don't know if a lot of you remember, but there was some very large adult trees that bordered this as well. So he started the process by taking these trees out. Once the trees were out, at that time then, he started the clearing of the dirt and removing of this mound. He came into our office and he said, I feel I'm going to need approximately a 2 to 3, well, a little over 2, but less than 3 foot variance. Let's just make it a 4 foot variance. At that time, even though the building permit was already issued and signed by me, because initially I did not think we needed a building or a variance, then he ceased work until this time. He did remove the dirt, but that needed to.
I did not touch anything, I just removed trees. I did not remove any dirt until I had that permit in hand. I did not have any of my equipment over there, I did not start work until I came in here and I paid for that building permit.
And as we were talking, when he stated that he was going to need a variance, I did ask him, have you talked to the neighbors? And I knew that he had talked to you, and I was under the impression you had talked to the couple from Washington.
I didn't talk to them, but Tom had said he had talked to them, so,
Okay.
about it. And, you know, we did our best to stay off of their stuff. And just so everybody knows, I mean, this is gonna be nice when I get done. I mean, when this is, Tom's building is not gonna fall. It's gonna stay there, and his building is a little bit on my property. I don't have a problem with that. We're just gonna get this thing looking really nice and improve the city and increase your tax base. So at the end of the day, I don't know what I missed on the drawings. I usually take pretty detail. I'm a civil engineer, so we did the drawings, and I have the layout. I'm sure that I have, unless I missed the sheet that I turned in, but I have all the offsets of distances from existing building and everything like that. So if you have any questions or if you need more stuff, I'll gladly resubmit it. I have it at home. I just, it was a oversight.
When did the paper publish the notice? What weeks, like what dates? Did it not the 10 days?
Is it 10 business days or 10 calendar days?
It's
10
calendar
days.
day.
When?
10 days, 10
Oh,
calendar.
I thought
She's still looking for a date.
All I don't document when, I can look through my email and find when it went into the paper, but I do document when I hang and that was all on 9/10.
I'm just thinking about property owners are assumed to have notice of their paper if their property's in the city. And so I was just making sure that
Well,
meant the 10 days for the paper, which is what they're presumed to have.
and he did have notice.
Well, I
Because he
remember
did
the other
know.
property owners, the one that were concerned that they're.
Tom did not know about the variance. We never talked about a variance, but I didn't think it was it was a minor distance. that we were talking about, and I know that I'm gonna build it back up, and I stayed 4 feet away from those buildings when I removed the dirt. I also had to have the power pole moved, and I stayed 4 to 6 feet away from that. I had them come in, they moved the power pole, and then I continued to move the dirt. And now we're filling everything back in now, so.
Do you have the list of like
Yeah.
15 to 20 things that?
Yep. Yeah, you want it or you want me to read it to?
I suppose it'd be easier to
Okay.
read.
All right, so if you're going to determine whether or not a variance needs to be made, it says the following issues are to be considered, each and all of them, as determining factors in whether or not the issuance of a variance is justified. So it makes no preference, one is to the other. These are all things that you, acting as the zoning board of adjustment, should consider. A, an unnecessary hardship must be established by the applicant. For purposes of the chapter, an unnecessary hardship is a situation where in the absence of a variance, an owner can make no feasible or reasonable use of the property. Convenience, loss of profit, financial limitations, or self-imposed hardship shall not be considered as grounds for approving the variance by the zoning board of adjustment. B, literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would provide or deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other property owners in the same district under similar terms. So essentially, if you're going to treat everybody else in the zone as an apple, and you treat the other guy as an orange when giving him a little bit of space or cutting him a little bit of a break, would allow him to be treated as any other, in this case, industrial resident of the district, you have to consider that. D, granting of the variance will comply with the general purposes and intent of this ordinance and will not be offensive to adjacent areas or to the public welfare. Okay, so that's a balancing consideration you have to make with respect to what is the, at least this is my interpretation of it, what is the intent of a industrial zone in the city, and will not be offensive to adjacent areas or the public welfare. So that would include whether or not there's possibility for collapse, if there's anything that would mitigate that. Sounds like we've talked about that. And if the public welfare in any way is going to be, harmed by giving this guy a couple feet or whatever it is. Exceptional F, exceptional and extraordinary circumstances apply to the property that do not apply to other properties in the same zone or vicinity and result from lot size or shape, topography, or other circumstances which are not of the applicant's making. Sounds like trees may, emphasis may qualify for that. The topography, so however the trees and the dirt are positioned, is something you need to consider. G, in order to preserve the intent of this ordinance as well as protect the public interest, the zoning board of adjustment may attach conditions to a variance. The variance shall remain valid only so long as the property owner applies with any terms and conditions of the variance. For example, an example only, you need to have a retaining wall of a certain composite grade, structure, amount of dirt or force it can hold behind it, etc. H, an applicant for the variance an application shall be completed, so we talked about that. It lists the things you have to do. So really it's items alpha through golf of the variance portion of 15.04. If you want, I can make you all photocopies so that we can all read along together the references. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, because I'm there.
Okay. Let's see that. Thank you.
15 alpha through what?
G.
15.04 alpha through.
Yep.
Willis, Dave?
I'm still with you.
Okay. You were just dropped.
Literally.
No,
So is that basically saying that the industrial zone is encroaching on the residential zone?
What was your question again, sir?
It sounded like the industrial zone is moving into the residential zone, or, just 2 feet, whatever. I'm not speaking for the people who live in Washington State, I'm just curious.
Right, in this instance, yes, you could potentially have a piece of property that is zoned industrial hanging over into a residential zone. I think you would look to, one of the ways you look at it though is where's the primary locus of the majority of the property, and 98% of it is in the industrial zone.
Yeah, yes.
I don't understand that. It's a setback. That is, It's still industrial.
That's what I was thinking too.
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. You're asking for a variance from the setback requirement, right?
Correct.
You're not asking to encroach into a different.
Correct.
How many
So the
urban
property,
residential?
the
Yes.
zoning will still be the
The
same.
rest,
It's just 25 feet of
IJ,
the industrial
which is all
zone,
the
which we usually
procedures for-
require to just kind of stay blank.
Sure.
That might become 22 feet
Your
instead of
original?
20. Like
Your-
that's what we're talking about. So it's not like an
Okay.
encroachment into the new zone, if that makes sense.
Okay, back.
I'll give it back to you because I have mine here.
The zoning at the time that that building that's involved in yours, I'm going to presume they grandfathered that in. That will be in your abstract. You're a civil engineer, sir?
Yeah.
Then you know the rules and regulations or the differences on getting vehicles in and out, and you could have modified your plan to that extent. I have a problem with that. You're the expert. The folks in Washington, was it Washington?
Washington State.
Okay, Washington State did not have the ability to respond to this. They get a hearsay, that's not good enough. So, like I said, I have a problem with this. This is the second time we've had a no variance issue come before this, and I don't, like I said, I don't like the process that we're doing this with. And the homeowners were there, or the homes were there long before the storage sheds were. And like I said, I have a problem.
I've got a question. Has a precedent been set in the form of granting variances in the city of Alcester in the past years that not necessarily every single one of these variances were granted for emergency purposes? I mean, I saw, I don't even know, 15, 12, a number of variances that were all granted. Only one was not granted, and it was eventually granted. I mean, this has happened a dozen times or more.
I don't think it's fair to necessarily say just because we grant variances that suddenly means all variances have to be granted. That's why we have these factors to consider.
So a precedent is irrelevant, is what you're saying?
Well, no, I think like if we had one where somebody in an industrial area that abuts a residential area asked for a 4-foot variance and we have granted those in the past, that's the type of precedent that I think B would apply. But I don't think just because we have given variances in the past doesn't mean you always give them, because you do look at these factors to
Also,
determine.
CE, like E covers that.
Yeah, non-conforming.
I would tell you, you can weigh precedent a little bit, but your factors are by far the
Yeah.
more important thing to weigh and consider.
In the issue on the Anderson Drive issue with the barn, that was the way that went down was that could not be used as a precedent to change any other, to use that as a precedent for other violations, so to speak, of zoning.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm paraphrasing, but that we got a precedent for a guy's motorhome. We build a big building. Then they use that to for precedent for a barn. God only knows what's going to go on there, but in a residential area. My thing is that one precedent doesn't mean you can throw it like dominoes.
Isn't that called best practices?
Look,
Precedents?
The whole chapter is written and designed for requests that are out of the ordinary to be considered on a case-by-case basis in applying factors A through H.
But we're trying to make it a
Vickie,
conforming, non-conforming.
write this down, I'm agreeing with you.
Okay. Yay!
I guess one of the issues I have with A is that it has to be an unnecessary hardship established, and it can't be something for convenience, loss of profit, financial limitations, or self-imposed hardship. And so my question really is that could you find 2 feet in a slightly smaller building that doesn't lose the goal that you're doing?
I've already ordered the building, it's sitting on the ground.
It's
but a
prefabricated.
safety- it's a safety thing too. When people back out and they hit the building or they run into somebody too, I mean, I'm just telling you, I've been in this business a long time. I asked for it for a specific reason, and if I would have known about that, you know, I probably wouldn't even have built it here. I would have gone to one of my other locations. So, I talked to Jeff Fillingsness, you know, and he didn't think it would be a problem, so.
Without the variance, can you make feasible or reasonable use of the property?
It's, like I said, I don't know, I might just bag it, or, you know, because I just don't, the 20, you move those buildings that close, the people hit the buildings, it's just, like I said, it's, I don't know. I wasn't expecting this at all, so.
I wasn't either.
I just need to.
I don't think very many of us were expecting this.
Is your house the one that's directly south?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I have a question for Mr. Hubert. Can he tell me how many feet there are from the south edge of the existing building to what will be the north edge of the new building?
I would like,
Not including driveway, from building to building,
well, it's proposed to be 30 feet,
30 feet.
yes.
And that would basically include 2 driveways, and you would have,
It's all concrete, it's not a dry, it's
It's all
just,
concrete.
yeah,
28 feet wouldn't work.
no. And it's not, it's more than that, so it's almost like 27.
Okay. So would you be willing, I would support this if we could get a retaining wall, and if the landowner that is there tonight will support the variance.
I don't know yet, I don't know, I didn't expect this, I talked to both the landowners, so I don't know, I don't know.
Do we have signature approvals from both landowners?
I don't think any of those are.
Yeah, it's not a requirement.
It's this.
This is
To do it.
the
It's this
factory
right
thing,
there.
yeah.
so, Mr. Hubert, would you be willing to say that right now it's an suspended situation and they're going to, I don't know, take stock, I guess?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I do
don't
appreciate that.
It's, like I said, I've invested a lot of time and money in this city to do this, and if you guys don't want it, just let me know.
I don't think it's the issue if we want it, it's just about how it all got done. I watched it, and I continue to watch it. And what the information the public was provided, and it's, I'm sorry that you feel like you're getting picked on.
That has nothing to do with me.
I'm just sorry that you feel like.
It has nothing to do with me, but.
It was all posted correctly, according to what we were supposed to do.
But,
The only
okay,
thing that wasn't
okay,
done
so
is
now we
written.
have changes, right?
Pardon me?
We have changes, correct? And we're having a public hearing, correct?
Right, it's public
Okay.
hearing, yeah. Mhm.
The public's here, we're
Right,
talking.
absolutely.
True.
I wouldn't have been here
If
if
we
I
gotta
hadn't been
suspend it,
told.
we gotta suspend it, guys, you know? But if we wanna go ahead and move with it, that's fine. I think it's more important than moving from here. We gotta watch what we do for future references. I know it's only 2 feet, but we all know the old saying, take an inch, you're gonna get a mile. At some point, the city of Alcester will come up against more feet here, there. And as it gets put off onto the citizens of Alcester, you know, their input's important. I would like to hear verbally, more so from the corner lot people, what they believe about it. They're trying to sell their place. Right now, it makes their place look like heck, you know. I don't know. I live right across the street. I don't feel that I'm here more so on the citizen of Alcester, and just let's talk about this. I think we can work it out. It's just how it all went down. You know, you didn't expect it, and that's why we have building permits. That's why you had to post that sign over there for public knowledge, and here we are. It's not that we don't want your business, sir.
Yeah, I dropped off my water bill right in the box the other day, and I didn't notice any signs. I used to get the information off the building up there when I walked to drop my water bill off. So I just, being out of town all the time, I just didn't know this was going on at all. I thought I was going to lose half my building in the back, you know, at first, until I got more information on it. So I'm just thinking about the variance question of if I would agree. I'm just thinking about that for a while, okay? Because it sounds like this is a common practice of, here's a variance, go ahead and do what you want. And you should have this worked out before you put a shovel in the ground. So, give me a few minutes.
What we're going to do is we're going to, I guess, suspend this discussion and move on with the agenda. We will revisit this in a little bit. Mr. Huber and everybody that's interested in it, I guess, I don't know how far it's going to go tonight, but we do have to move on as we've got much more of an agenda to deal with. So number 5 will be remaining in discussion mode right now. We would like to move on to number 6. We have Patrick Andrews here from the Planned Development District, actually, that's official? Yeah.
So, I've met some of you. Looks like you've had a little bit of change since I've been here. Last time I was here, we were working on adopting the zoning ordinance that you're working with. So, I'm Patrick. I'm from CCOG. CCOG is your regional planning group. Every year you pay membership dues to us, and we provide you with grant services, planning and zoning, municipal code, land subdivision services. And you can either use us or not, and this is something you wanted our input on, so we are here to assist. So our big place to start is, since you adopted language for planned developments, that's in place. What that did was set up the process. So now we are trying to apply the process to a particular project. Unfortunately, as you can see in your zoning ordinance, planning and zoning by state law takes a long time. There's a lot of publication, and for things to become effective takes 20 days after it's published and time between meetings. So the big thing with it is it's several steps, and each by state law takes a decent amount of time. So your first one is, so you have a project proposal. Where we need to start is just the way planned developments kind of work is you start by how you have zoning districts. A planned development is basically a customized zoning district for a project. So you would start by writing rules for that district, and it would look similar to your standard districts you normally have, except you cater them to what a developer wants that hopefully blends with the city's interests, and you come to something that's specially created. And that can be whatever uses you want, if you want different setbacks, if you want different rules for signs or off-street parking or whatnot. Everything's up to customization. And that's kind of what we're here on. The person wanting the project has sent a memo of what they want to do and what uses they're looking at, and our job today is kind of to write that text of the rules for it, and then after that we go to the step of taking that property as it is residential now, and once the district exists, you rezone it into that district. So that's a whole nother amendment process with the public hearings and the time periods, and so it takes a while. One other thing is, since this, with the development currently is now one large parcel that's zoned residential, if I'm correct.
That is correct.
So in order to subdivide the property, there's a whole process for that. It's your subdivision ordinance, and as part of your old zoning ordinance, what the new one did, it repealed everything in conflict with it. One part of that was not repealed is a subdivision ordinance from 1972. So that is still technically effective. The big thing for your consideration today is it says if you have zoning regulations, follow them. As long is one of your requirements of approving a subdivision from the one lot into the three is that it meets your zoning requirements. Where that would fit in kind of depends on if you can subdivide it as R1 before the rezone, you can kind of hack off that step at the end so you don't have to do amendment, rezone, subdivision. But if it's unable to meet minimum lot size and width as R1, then the subdivision part may have to occur at the end. And after that's all done, that's when they would submit their final plan for your approval that includes all the fine details of what it would physically look like. So our process today is, do you all have this? So this is right now, pretty much their list of uses that they wanted. I tweaked track 1 a bit because there's a federal law called RLUPA, the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, that requires for religious uses you treat them at least the same as every other use of like type. So if you allow a meeting hall, you have to treat a church as the same because it's a general meeting place for people. So if one's a conditional use, the other has to be. If one's permitted, the other has to be. So that's added in there, even though they didn't necessarily have that on the list. So as with permitted and conditional uses, permitted is as long as they meet the zoning ordinance, they come in, get a building permit, and they go. Conditional use, you look at the project specifically, what they want to do with the particular place, and you can assign conditions to it. If you want everything to be permitted, that's an easy process, but it's generally probably not recommended to allow them just to do whatever they want to do unless that's what you want to do, since some of them are industrial type uses like light manufacturing in tract 2. That's a very broad heading. If you are okay with them just getting a building permit for light manufacturing, you certainly can, but most tend to shy away from the more intrusive things. So it all is a matter of what you think you all want an extra look at, or what you are fine with just getting a building permit if it meets setbacks and height and.
So Dave, what he was just referring to was one that says ordinance number 2020-XX. All right.
Now, Patrick, do we need to add a government office in there as permitted? Or will public?
I mean, it arguably falls under the term office, or some use public service facility, but office is
We don't like
broad.
arguably.
Yeah.
Arguably means people argue, so let's make it unarguable.
We can do that. If you'd like to clarify that, we certainly can. You can be as direct or broad as you would like to be, depending on what your preference is. Some prefer it nailed down to every particular retail use, and others just like the broad heading. So it's kind of personal preference.
I would say the term office covers it, but.
Well, just to clarify, when this project was coming together, one of the possible uses of one of the rooms would be to maybe quarter it off or subdivide it and just rent out office space. So if somebody just needed the high-speed internet, or somebody just needed a cubicle, but they weren't comfortable working in their home, then that would suffice. So in my opinion, that would be what you would consider office. I don't know if you want to specify government means we're going to be here.
Well, there's a list of 12 permitted uses right now. If you look at those, it's evidently advised to move some of those items or even add specific items that are not on that list of 12 under the conditional use heading, letter B. I'm assuming that would be for all of the tracts. It's all the same. Well,
Well, they're not all the same,
They're not all
because track
the
2
same.
is 16, track 3 is 15,
no,
track 1 is
I'm
12.
just saying, they both have yellow notes. Note, I've listed everything as permitted. However, track 3 does have some conditional text, so.
Yep. Then those are based on, you probably all have this development plan.
I didn't email that out to them yet.
Okay.
Because I thought we had to do this part first.
Okay, as part of that, they sent a list of what they think they want for each tract on this, so that's kind of where those come from. So that's what the developer wants, whether you all want, you don't have to give them everything. If you don't think one of those things is appropriate, you don't necessarily have to give it to them, or if you think you should add to the list, you certainly can, make things conditional, leave them permitted, you have a lot of flexibility in deciding what it looks like.
It makes me a little uncomfortable, as I'm seeing in track 2 and track 3, where you've got a daycare center and a group home. If you'd had those together in the same facility. I would want to know more about the definition of a group home as it relates, you know. That gives me a little pause.
Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a list of what could be in there and
Correct.
in the preliminary ordinance, and when they come with the final plan, if we decide we've got a daycare next to a group home and that's not a good idea, we'd still have the opportunity to say, man, I don't know, let's go back to the drawing board.
You could go at it from the physical, what it looks like and how they're separated. Maybe not the use aspect. And your definition of group home in your zoning ordinance is a temporary residential living arrangement for persons living in an institutional setting and in need of supportive living arrangement in order to readjust to living outside the institution. These are persons who are receiving therapy and counseling from support staff who are present when residents are present. So that is potentially broad, and it could be
It's broader
kind of
than
a
I'm
halfway
comfortable.
house versus.
Yeah, it's more broad than I'm comfortable with putting toddlers in the same vicinity. If you had one in track 2 and one in track 3, I would still be concerned.
Could you repeat the group home definition for me one more
Sure.
time?
A temporary residential living arrangement for persons living in an institutional setting and in need of a supportive living arrangement in order to readjust to living outside the institution. These are persons who are receiving therapy and counseling from support staff who are present when the residents are present.
So at all times in that situation, they're supervised, and at all times, anytime I've been in the daycare, they're supervised. So it's not like they're ever gonna really need each other unsupervised.
If it's a halfway house though, they may not legally be able to be there if there's a daycare.
Yeah, be close to children
But I
of a
don't
certain
think-
age.
I don't think that's necessarily something we would have to be concerned about so much as they wouldn't be able to open a halfway house
Right.
next to a daycare.
Right.
Doesn't it solve the issue if you use if you take item 4, group home, and put it under conditional use in all cases? Because then it requires a conditional use permit, and that permit could just not be granted.
There are potentially legal considerations for the placement of group homes, since you're affecting where people live. But conditional is potentially the way to do it. As a conditional use, while the general rule is you can grant it with conditions, you can grant it without conditions, or you can deny it. So those are kind of your 3 options with conditional use.
Which basically means that if we've already got a daycare and we don't want a group home, we just deny it. End of story. So there's the answer to the whole group home situation. Let's move on to other discussion.
I think if you did that, though, you'd still have to move the daycare also. Because in the situation that somebody does get permission to have a group home, and then it's just a permitted use to open a daycare, they'd be able to like force them out of something we've
I
permitted.
see what you're saying.
So you'd have to
Yeah,
put
put
both, that way we
both
can
of them in the
Yeah.
conditional. That's a good idea. It's a very good idea.
I have a question randomly, because I'm just trying to figure out, because you mentioned something about setbacks and stuff, and I'm assuming that is what we're referring to, like between buildings, like the distance that they have to have.
Setbacks are the required yards on the borders of the property,
And would that
rather than the
apply-
separation distance of buildings.
Okay.
That would be usually covered by building codes if you have them.
Okay, so like you wouldn't have to like tear this building down to turn them into 3 tracks?
You would not generally, depending on where the line is. Since this building's all connected, chances are your side yard would be a 0 setback.
Oh.
So you'd probably want the setbacks to be 0 on the sides. Everything abutting a street is considered a front yard. Everything opposite a street is considered a rear yard, and then everything else is side.
Okay.
Is kind of the general rule for what's what.
Or main entrance.
So assuming that we do add daycare center and group home to conditional use under track 1, under track 2, and I'm assuming we better put it under track 3 just in case, we add government office as permitted use where? Track 1, 2, and 3?
Might as well.
Okay, so if we add those 3 items, is there other discussion regarding the permitted versus conditional use?
Track 1, is that really realistic to expect that to be for governmental office?
Is that-
Knowing the way it's set up as it is right now?
Is this track 1?
This is track 2. Track 1 would be the ag part.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if we ever moved the,
Well, one time we
It's accessibility I'm talking about.
considered possibly moving the police
Yeah.
office there. That would be a government office, the police.
Yeah,
or
yeah.
if we
So-
moved the maintenance office that's kind of across the street, if we ever moved it across.
That'd be a city office then.
Well, just because you're putting it in conditional use doesn't mean you have to grant it.
No,
Oh,
but
that's
what I'm
true.
saying is like, it might be,
My question was accessibility on that particular track.
Well, you're assuming it's gonna continue to look the way it looks right now. It may not. There might be better street access, there might be a parking lot, there might be 0 ground entry. I mean,
I guess I'm just curious as to why it wouldn't be accessible.
it's a steep incline.
This,
I mean-
there's inclines on 2 sides.
How would the hallway be if anyone wanted to get to like a track?
There's stairways in
Yeah,
both
there are
hallways.
stairs. However, there is also a lift, a chair lift.
That's in, you know,
Isn't
There's-
that
there's
part-
a-
Isn't that part track
There is-
1?
There was a lift next to the entrance coming in
Right,
from the
right next
east.
to the stairs, so
Yeah, coming
it
in from the
is
east.
accessible.
I think it is.
So, Any other discussion?
Your other important topics to look at beyond just what's permitted and conditional are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Do you want any special rules considering landscaping? Accessory buildings are everything that's not a principal building, so like a garage to a house, it's accessory. Would you want any special rules for that, or fences, or where people park on the property? As part of their memo for off-street parking, they submitted current off-street parking consists of 12 spaces along Dakota Street and approximately 15 spots along Fifth Street. On-street parking is not considered off-street parking, obviously. So off-street parking is strictly parking on the lot itself. That number is not factored into how they park on the street. It's whether you want to require parking spaces on the lot, whether it's however many per what, or where they can be positioned, or...
Those parking spots would be considered off-street, right? They like
Those are-
cut
Yes.
in.
Yes, if they're on the lot, however that breaks down.
Yeah. That's what
And then they mostly mentioned that for minimum area requirements, as long as it meets central business, and I basically took your central business lot and yard and copy and pasted it there. So a lot of this it's entirely customizable. You don't have to give them everything. You can craft it to meet what you think is appropriate for the city as well. And you don't need to come up with all the answers tonight. So, I mean, I imagine they do want to get the process moving along, but if you have thoughts or ideas or whatnot, I'm certainly available to discuss them with.
I do have a timeline on this project, and I will schedule a public hearing for both planning and zoning and city council on October 5th. With that being the case, I would like to have our first reading on that night.
And to have the public hearing, generally, you'd want this to be reasonably finalized. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's what the public is here to input on.
We have to leave ourselves room that if somebody comes in and says, this just won't work, we need to be able to compromise. So we can't put I'm a little reluctant to put a rush it through kind of attitude on it.
So October 5th is too soon for a first reading, is that what we're saying?
I don't see an issue with October 5th. Dave, do you have any input on it?
No, I think it'll work.
So what notes I have to change to give you back a draft is right now adding government office to all 3 tracks and moving daycare center and group home in 2 and 3 to both conditional. Are there any other changes you would like on a next draft?
Why wouldn't we move never mind. They're not in there as permitted, never mind.
Is there anything on here not on here that you would like on there? Or anything on here that you absolutely would not want at all?
I guess I'd like to have a definition of the light manufacturing. And the other thing is, and this is opening a can of worms, house of worship. Are there basics that we use? Traditional houses of worship or stuff that could get us into trouble?
So your definition of light manufacturing is manufacturing processes which are not obnoxious due to dust, odor, noise, vibration, pollution, smoke, heat, or glare. They are generally characterized as having all aspects of the process carried on within the building itself.
Okay.
And for house of worship, a structure where persons regularly assemble for worship, ceremonies, rituals, and education relating to a particular form of religious belief, in which a reasonable person would conclude is a place of worship by reason of design, signs, architecture, or other features.
Okay.
And the only difference between that and a meeting hall is the word worship.
Yeah, it could be a BFW, it could be just
Elks,
yeah,
whatever, doesn't matter.
a boat club.
Yep.
Do you think we should add a school back in, either as a conditional use? Just as a crazy thought that if we'd ever have a, kind of like Aspire, what used to be a non-conforming alternative education.
Right.
Sure.
Or a private school, it could be a
Private school,
Yeah.
religious school.
So just the word school, added under what, permitted uses?
It could either be permitted or
Or conditional?
conditional.
Under what tracks? Only 2 and 3?
Section 1 also.
Yeah.
Okay,
I say
all 3. Under conditional uses, we add the word school. Everybody in agreement with that, or the majority? Everybody's nodding, most people are nodding, okay.
Do we have a definition for school?
Dave agrees.
You do.
Yes,
Mayor, may I address you real quick?
yes, you may.
So this was put together real pen to paper, so to say, to give us a rough draft of something to think about. So there's real flexibility there without disappointing anybody. If you want to move something to conditional, it's not a problem. It's just a starting draft is what it was intended. And if I would have done a better job, I would have hit spell check probably 2 or 3 times before I sent it over to Pat. So please understand that. It's real flexible. I'm part of the development company. The school is actually the applicant here. We've gotten an opportunity to buy this from the school, so that's why the development company is part of that applicant also. So please understand there's real flexibility.
Your definition of school is any building or portion thereof, whether public or private, which is designed, constructed, or used for instruction in elementary or secondary education. Secondary being defined as high school.
Not post-secondary.
Correct. If we could expand, if you wanted to have a cosmetology school, that would be, you could certainly, that would require a little alteration of the school definition or adding an additional definition and term, however you'd like to do it. There's a lot of ways to do what you want to do.
Any other discussion needed right now? Dave's good, everybody good? Good, Patrick?
Yep.
I could answer Dave's question on the variance.
Okay, so, Dave, we're gonna go back to public hearing number 5.
And I would agree to the variance.
Is that Tom?
This
Yes.
is Tom, yes.
What's Tom's opinion on the wall? Do we need a little retaining wall there?
Yes, Mr. Huber mentioned at first a retaining wall would probably be the best for the clearance that he needs. A solid cement wall, good drainage, as long as we're not getting an unwanted water feature in my backyard. And my neighbor concurred. I talked to him just a minute ago. So, we're,
Tom, thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
If you're okay with it,
Yeah.
I can support the variance.
Just
I'll
to-
put a retaining wall.
I was gonna say, just to confirm. we want-
It's still not a factor on there, like getting adjacent landowners' permission. I
Yeah.
don't see that as a factor in what we're supposed to consider.
Well, arguably in D, will not be offensive to adjacent areas of public welfare. I mean, it doesn't say adjacent landowners, but we are. In D, you've at least got a toehold to say we're talking about the people next door that are arguably affected by the variance.
Do we wanna quick talk about why it's 25 feet? Does anyone have an idea? I don't. Is that a magic number?
That's just what appeared in the variance,
Yeah,
document for variance.
our
The side
ordinance
yard
has a
setback,
yes.
25, but is that a magic number, like?
It-
Because also part of D is granting the variance will comply with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance. If 25 feet isn't real particular, it's just the number we came up with, and 22 feet also complies by not creating, let's say, a water issue, then it would meet D in that sense as well. That's my question. If anyone has a real,
I think it's because it's joining a residential section. It has nothing to do with, I think the rear setback is like 20 feet versus 25.
What is the setback on my property?
Isn't that right, Pat?
It's 10, I believe. It's published in a thing.
I think the sides are 10, the back is.
And our sides are 7.
so it's really not a magic number. Unless somebody else has some idea of why we separated that.
Rear yard setbacks are 25 unless it's a manufactured home and it's 10.
So, what other discussion do we have regarding this public hearing for the variance?
So I'm gonna make an assumption, and it's just an assumption, but I'm assuming that in the past, when people have gone around and gotten signatures, that's just to have
Show
something.
us.
It's evidence, like if an adjacent landowner would take it to court, then they've got some evidence in their corner saying, no, they agreed to it, they said it was okay. I don't think it's anything that we need to consider. I mean, I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah. And I think also like it demonstrates like a willingness of the citizenry to agree to it, which should carry some weight with
Right.
council to be like, oh, my people don't care.
My only hangup is A. I just
The unnecessary hardship.
Right.
Yeah, I also am still kind of having just a mental issue with that. I do think that like if it is a safety issue in terms of cars being unable to safely get through it,
Especially with a trailer.
and then our granting the variance
Yeah, or a
creates
truck,
that,
U-Haul truck.
alleviates, I shouldn't say creates, because that we have to, but alleviates that hardship.
I can see that as a hardship.
I see it as I see it as a design flaw.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I would welcome a motion to grant a 4-foot variance from the required 25-foot setback from the south side of the property line for Sunnyside LLC.
Was Sam, did he have more to say about this, or?
I don't know.
Could we maybe wait for him,
Yes, we can.
just to make sure?
Is he coming back?
I don't know if he's off, if he's talking to,
Yeah, he's right there.
Can we require him to come back?
And also C, if only 2 feet is needed, can we give 4?
I would think yes, because if we're not certain that only 2 is needed, and we've granted the minimum that is like reasonable to the variance, that's what I would think. It doesn't necessarily have to be an exact science of,
If you're gonna talk about a retaining wall, it needs to be to industry standards.
well, that would apply to the condition we set to the granting of variance. Just, do we have an industry standard?
yes.
In the interest of moving this along, I would make a motion that we grant Sunnyside LLC a 4-foot variance from the required 25-foot setback from the south side of the property line if he agrees to put up a 3 cement block high or 4 cement equivalent retaining wall on the south side.
or?
It doesn't matter, I'll do the retaining wall, whatever height it is, but it might only be 2 feet, because we still have to build it up quite a ways, so
Yeah,
it's not very high.
His answer to that 3 cement block high is, basically, it depends on how much is really required. And it would be to standards, so, it might not need to be 3 blocks high, Dave. We don't know yet.
You may need 48-inch footings though.
Before we ask for a second, Sam, did you have any input that we have not heard regarding this? Okay, we have
Well, I
not.
just, yeah, I've said it before, I'm gonna say it again. You're gonna wanna make some findings that indicate that you think as A through G, you met some of those.
Yes, we just discussed that a little bit here just a few moments ago. We have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion's been seconded by Darla. Any other discussion? If not, Melissa, how do you vote?
Do we need to justify it before we vote on it? Or do we just need to have findings later, or? You said we need to be able to make findings.
I mean, as long as you can show you considered those factors, the ordinance that we have in place says following issues are to be considered, each and all of them as determining factors in whether or not the issue of the variance is justified. So if you want to state those into the minutes, you can. If you feel that as a council you've considered them, you can do that. I like to make sure I have a record of things, just so I can show what was done or not done, or how we arrived at a decision. But the ordinance does not require anything one way or the other.
So there's a motion and a second.
Is there any other discussion at this time with the motion on the floor?
With the retaining wall involved, it needs to be, there's depth that they have to go for freezing and stuff to offset that, plus the height that we want it. That where if somebody tumbles off it, they don't get hurt, that kind of thing. So it needs to be industry standard. I know that the house I have, footings have to be 48 inches down to support a wall and a concrete base.
A retaining wall isn't like that, though. If you have block walls, you have to put certain products, you gotta put rock behind it so the drainage flows, so the wall doesn't move. It has to be able to accept water and retract water. So there'd be a pipe behind it, and it would be filled up with like a quartzite rock in the back. If you don't put the rock in, the walls fail, and it obtains water. When you talk about freezing and thawing in the winter time, South Dakota doesn't really have a lot of freeze-thaw areas because it's when, it gets below 32, and then it freezes, and then when it thaws, and that's when your problems resist. So if you have rock in there, there is no water there. It just goes all the way to the bottom and it flows out. So.
Despite the tutorial, I stand by my opinion.
I built those walls he's talking about, you're absolutely correct. I haven't heard anything in the fair amount I've been listening tonight that indicates he's going to do anything, can engage in any construction, any walls that's outside of the normally accepted standards for retaining walls.
So do we want to make, I know Dave's motion was pretty specific, do we need to make it a little more general so that he doesn't have to build it to that exact, what Dave say?
Well,
3
he
blocks
said
high?
3 cement or equivalent height. That's what I wrote.
Board.
Equivalent height, board.
I think that's 2 feet.
That's 2 feet.
So now that that's the motion, that's what he has to build it to.
I guess so.
Is that okay? Like, is that
Is that
fine,
gonna
or
work?
would
Well,
you need?
I'm just telling you though, you gotta make the land come in, so it's gonna start at 0, and then it's gonna angle up a little bit, and then it's gonna go in the back and then may have to angle down a little bit, so that's all I'm saying. It's just the lay of the land, we're gonna make it look good. And it's gotta be level. So-
I get what you're saying, but what I'm asking is the thing that he said about putting it at 3 cinder blocks.
I
or
don't know
equivalent,
if you
is that
just,
fine?
a retaining wall, that, if you want me to, I don't know, it's just, it goes mainly by the lay of the land, because it's a lot higher in Tom's neighbors than it is in Tom's, but Tom, right by his garage there, I mean, we might have to go a little higher there and then angle back down a little bit, because his garage is that much higher, so.
So what I'm thinking based off of what he just said, which I'm not smart enough in terms of engineering and that kind of stuff, that he probably needs a little bit more leeway. And
That's
so
what
we
I'm
should
saying,
amend
yes.
the motion
Yes.
to allow him to create to industry standards, and I assume he knows the industry since he just explained so much stuff that I don't know.
We can't really amend the motion that's already been made and seconded. It would have to die and then it would have to be remade. So I'm going to ask at this time, the motion is on the floor, it's been made, it's been seconded, it's been beat to death. Now, I'm asking for a vote. Melissa, how do you vote?
I guess I'm voting no.
Linda, how do you
Aye.
vote? Marcus?
No.
Dave?
Yes.
Vickie?
No.
Darla?
Yes.
So what we have is a tie.
I'm willing to reconsider it as long as we
Yeah.
change the language so that he's,
I vote no. The tie has been broken. This motion has failed. Now, would anybody like to make a motion regarding,
Yeah, I move to grant a 4-foot variance for the required from the required 25-foot setback from the south side of the property line on the condition that a retaining wall is placed with, up to industry standards.
okay, Dave, what was just done was the motion did fail. However, Marcus made a motion and he said, all of the same, 4-foot variance required from the required 25-foot setback with a retaining wall built to industry standards. I don't know yet. Is there a second for that motion?
I will second.
Melissa made a second for that motion. Is there any other discussion regarding this motion?
My discussion is simply that it's to allow him more leeway so he can fit it into whatever needs to happen to make it work.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
No.
Darla?
Aye.
I should know your name. Motion is passed 5-1. We'll now move on to item number 7, Police Department. It should be noted, Dave, you maybe weren't aware, but the chief did leave and he left some information with Melissa Kai regarding some of the surplus equipment, specifically the Glock 22.
Yeah, the only item he has that he wanted surplus was this Glock 22 Gen 4. They already have enough backup weapons where they don't think it's necessary to keep this one. And the chief preferred a sealed bid as the method, but that is up to us, obviously, but that was his preference.
He did tell me that the gun is a 2013, so it's 7 years old. The springs are, for the most part, worn. That's the best way of putting it.
Does it present a hazard to people?
I don't know if it does to people, but it would to our officers possibly, so
Okay.
I don't think I want it to misfire.
Yeah.
If they need to fire, I think I want it to fire.
Yeah, I'm just like asking, so if we sold it and it like exploded on
That's-
I would disclose that the the springs are worn.
That would be disclosed.
And then it would be up to them to take it and
It's
have it.
7 years old, they'll know. Anybody that buys a Glock will know. Any other discussion at this time? Hearing none, I would,
I guess the only thing my only concerns about a sealed bid is that we don't get to do like a background check on whoever's buying it. And I know that's not required by statute, but it still makes me a little uneasy.
Well, couldn't we put that in, sealed bid, subject to background check?
So who's gonna do the background check?
actually, the state of South Dakota, you don't have to do a background
Well,
check at all.
I know
All you
that.
have to do is have proof that they are 21 years of age, and that's it.
Like I said, I know that, it's just that,
It's the state of South Dakota. We can't make it more stringent than the state of South Dakota
we
can
don't
make.
have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
sell
we
it to
can,
anybody.
we can,
Well, then we
we
won't
can make
sell
it
it.
more stringent than the law. We can't make it looser than the law, but we can make it more stringent than the law. Right, Sam?
Generally, yeah. I'm not interested, I'm interested in the answer, but I don't want to find out the hard way what happens if we,
Sell it to a bank robber.
well, Marcus puts in a bid and he makes the bid and then we say, hey, give us all your stuff for a background check. And then he says no, and we've got a fight on our hands over an old clock. I don't think as long as we comply with the minimum requirements of statute, you know, we're
The
gonna
only
be just
reason I
fine.
bring it up is the last time when the chief got his, I don't remember what it was that he bought, the last time he bought a new weapon, and we chose to trade old for new.
Shotguns.
One of the reasons that he said for doing that was that we don't have to worry about being the ones who sell it to Joe Bank Robber. So it's like, if that was a concern then, is it still a concern now, or are we not concerned with that?
Well, even though it was a concern that he voiced, he later on, and when I discussed with him selling an AR-15, he said it's irrelevant. So I guess I don't see an issue with it because of what the state of South Dakota says.
Random question, what's a sealed bid?
It's a written offer that I make to the city that is literally sealed,
Oh,
so
people
that
just
nobody
can't
else
see
can
it.
see
Oh,
it,
so
nobody
it's
sees it beforehand.
Okay, got it. I was like,
And then it's all opened at a specific time.
No,
it's just private.
it's open meeting if I remember accurately.
Got it.
Any other discussion?
So when you make your motion on this and your method of disposal, then we'll also set the time and the date for opening.
If it's gonna be a sealed bid, we would have to, yes.
And then Sam will put that all in my publication.
How much time do we need?
We need time to be able to advertise it. I think we could do it the second meeting in October, if you like, or the first meeting in November. That would give us plenty of
The
time.
19th?
Probably should be the
10,
second, or the first meeting in November, really.
10/19, or, what is it, 11?
The second?
11/2 maybe?
11/2?
Yeah.
It's not a holiday, is it?
No.
Nope.
It's election day
Oh,
though.
unfortunate.
Day before the election,
To
yeah.
both of those things.
I would suggest that, it gives us just a little bit more time to do the advertising and so on. Do we have a motion? What? Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, I would make a motion to declare the Glock 22 Generation 4 pistol, serial number BYU 987 surplus, and to have a sealed bid for the sale of that, and the bids will be opened at the November 2nd, 2020 meeting.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Dave, seconded by Melissa. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda,
Aye.
Marcus,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Vickie,
Aye.
Darla.
Aye.
All vote yes, motion passed. Alcester EMS update. Well, we did have some really good news there. As you can see, according to letter I, Jeff Nahava, Babette Merchant, Christy Voss, Kayla Dykstra, Corey Kroger, Tim Navidi, I believe it is, Navidi, Karina Lusk, Shelby Broughton, all need to be added to the volunteer roster as EMS volunteers, and Tim Navidi also will be added as a fire department volunteer. It's amazing. I talked with Mr. Nahava the other day, and he said they're looking at about 20 EMS members now. And he specifically said, it is not my credit, it is the credit of the squad. They have done this. They have gone out and beat the bushes. They have gone out and discussed with people the need to have an EMS, and they've done a very fine job. So, obviously we've got the volunteer roster that needs some membership changes. Do I hear any motions?
I will make a motion to approve adding Jeff Nohava, Babette Merchant, Christy Voss, Kayla Dykstra, Corey Kroger, Tim Navidi, Karina Lusk, Shelby Broughton to the EMS volunteers, and Tim Navidi as the fire department volunteer.
Second.
Motion has been made by Melissa and seconded by Marcus, as read in lowercase I, under B, under item 8. Any other discussion?
Yes. What is the volunteer roster? Please explain how that, is that for work comp or how?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the paid guy on that list, Nahava? It's my information that he's being paid $22 an hour or some figure to be the director. How does that affect that work comp issue?
When he's acting as an EMS member, he's still a volunteer.
But he's still being paid for that position.
Not as an EMS person, just as the director. So he has two jobs. Is that what I'm understanding?
I would say.
That he acts
It
as
might
a...
also be the ambulance's responsibility to make sure that they're paying someone correctly and that they're following pay and all that stuff. I mean, I'm not sure that's our,
The reason why I asked that question is the assumption of liability. And given some experience past, people that have been injured during an ambulance call or fire call, and they were receiving, I believe, a clothing allowance, and that was considered pay, and that kicked some of the work comp out or the ability to sue. So that's why I'm asking that question.
but does that hurt the city or does that hurt the
Well,
individual EMS worker?
it could if we accepted this guy knowing that he's being paid for the position. I'm a little uncomfortable with that particular thing.
I think he's acting as a volunteer when he's on a call.
I think the following, I think that if he's acting as a volunteer while he's on the call, he's potentially covered. If he's in an executive director spot in some form or fashion at some point, may or may not be covered. He's on this roster, which means essentially, to me at least, we're gonna cover him to the extent we have the ability to do so. If you put me on this roster and it says, sorry, man, the work comp people say, sorry, man, you're the city attorney, no, can't do. That's
Well, it's a question.
Being on the roster is better than not being on the roster.
Mr. Mayor,
right.
if I remember correctly, I don't remember which meeting it was, that you and I sat in just as community members with the ambulance during one of their meetings. They had this discussion.
Oh, yeah, about the whole,
Of this very exact thing. And they were going to look into it and take care of it. So
they did take care of the propriety of paying him, obviously, because they're paying him.
no, I'm talking about how someone goes on, like if they have a full-time job and they need to go on work comp, that they are going to look into that, they are going to take care of it within themselves. And I'm going to trust that Mr. Nahava probably has done that.
Is there any other discussion at this time?
I would bring up one thing. This comes from the Brady book. It's who the EMT is accountable to. Patient comes first, medical direction comes second, state legislature comes third. This is what our ambulance is into. It's just a side comment, but I wanted to make sure that you guys realize there's a whole lot of stuff EMTALA, the ambulance. We don't have control over the ambulance, but the ambulance, the fallout could come back on our citizens.
We do have control over who's on the volunteer roster, and that is the motion current, as irrelevance to any of the stuff you were just talking about. That's the volunteer roster that we're talking about. Is there any other discussion regarding the motion on the floor? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
No.
Darla?
Yes.
5 yes, 1 no, motion has passed. There's next motion to amend the following to include fire department and EMS or fire department and EMS driver, Patrick Cast, Chris Brady, Axel Erickson, Kyle Paulson, Barry Hughes, Tim Navity, and Wayne Overholzer.
So the only reason I have this motion on there is some of our firemen, fire people have agreed to be the EMS. So this motion will put their name, we'll put EMS or EMS driver behind their names on the fire department.
Real quick question, can we remove Tim Navity since we just put him on both EMS and fire in the very preceding motion?
I don't know, why not?
I just want to make sure that they're not like slightly different.
Yeah,
It needs to be-
Tim Navity's under the EMS volunteers
But
and he's
now he's-
under the fire
this is for
department
driver.
currently.
See, I never had him as a fireman before.
Yeah,
He's
but
on
we just put him on now. Is
But
this
he's on the fire department also, and the ambulance. Is that what you're saying? So we have to list him there twice, don't we?
Well, he is
Yeah.
listed twice
Yeah.
In the
up in the
previous
last motion.
So I'm just asking, is there a difference between what we just added him to from the previous motion versus what we're now adding him to?
Yeah, driver.
The word driver's in there, but EMS is EMS.
It's fine. If you
But I-
want
if
to
it's
list in the
different,
second one,
I
it's
just wanted to
fine.
make sure.
The important thing is he gets on the list. That's
Yeah.
all work comp cares. They want to know who we have on the list.
You're right. In that case, then I'll just move to amend the following to, wait, first of all, before I finish that motion, what is the following?
Does he need to stay on there though? Because the last one didn't say driver. Does it matter?
I'm gonna put it, I'm gonna leave him on there, but what is the
He's-
following? Just
He's
so I
on
can-
a driver.
It's like
He's
the-
just on EMS and fire department. I've never had him on fire department before.
The following is just the workers' compensation, volunteer workers' comp, that's,
That is the reason why we do this.
the second one is also correct, perfect, that's all I was making sure. So I move to amend the volunteer roster for workers' compensation to include fire department EMS, or FD and EMS driver, Patrick Cast, Chris Brady, Axel Erickson, Kyle Paulson, Barry Hughes, Tim Navity, and Wayne Oberhauser.
One second.
Motion has been made and seconded, written as aye. Melissa seconded Marcus's motion. Any other discussion?
I would amend that to say EVOC trained, emergency vehicle operations.
EMS driver is only EVOC trained.
No,
They have to be.
no,
EVOC.
it's not what's said here.
It doesn't matter. The
Yes,
term
it does.
EMS driver-
Yes, it does. It has to be EVOC trained.
In the state of South Dakota, can a non-EVOC trained person drive the EMS ambulance legally?
I
Can they?
don't know. That's why I'm putting that
No, they
statement in
can't.
there. That's why I'm putting, that's why I suggested that.
Okay, so on this discussion point, are all of these people EVOC trained?
We don't know.
So if they're
But
just
me adding that
asking,
wouldn't.
They-
suddenly
they
make
have a
it-
in order to
certificate.
get the, so let's just assume none of them are, and they want to send them to training. They still need to be on the list as volunteers. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I would say, that me putting the word EVOC into the motion doesn't suddenly turn them into EVOC people. And it doesn't cover my booty when they aren't, and I still put them on there, but I assumed they were. Like, if we're putting them on, I guess we're putting them in. I guess
The
we're
only,
assuming that
the
was
only
correct.
fire people that respond are EVOC trained already. That's what
I'm
they
not.
assured me of.
I'd want to see the certificates. Sorry.
I would recommend just taking these concerns directly to the ambulance, because there's nothing that anybody at this table can do about it. They are their own entity. We cannot do anything about that.
Is there any?
And in my mind, I'm just thinking if they sent somebody who's not EVOC trained anyway, which I'm not saying that they would or that they can, but if they did and they got injured, I would still want them covered because they were trying to do a city service.
Well, even if they send them just to training
Yeah.
to get EVOC trained, they still need to be on the
On our
list.
volunteer list, yeah.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none.
Who seconded that?
Melissa.
The motion is on the floor. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
No.
Darla?
Aye.
5 yes, 1 no, motion passed. Legal updates. We've got 3 resolutions there.
Y'all had a chance to review these?
Yes, I have.
Anybody have any questions about what they do?
I have a quick comment. We left the word Dakota off of point 2 in resolution 2020-12. In like the middle, it says, as may be required by the South Governor's Office of Economic.
So we did.
Nice, good catch.
Where are you?
It's like halfway through the second
Oh, I
point
see
in
it.
resolution 2020-12, the one that starts be it further resolved. It reads,
Oh.
to provide such additional information as may be required by the South Governor's Office of Economic Development. It should add the word Dakota.
Did you hear that, Dave?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sure we all know what we're talking
Letter 20, or resolution 20-12 would be the first one that we would deal with. Is there any other discussion regarding 20-12 resolution? 2020-12, excuse me. And not hearing any, do I have a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 2020-12, CDBG funding for wastewater facilities.
As corrected. As corrected.
Yeah, as corrected, sorry.
I'll second that.
All right.
Motion was made by Marcus and seconded by Linda to accept resolution number 2020-12, CDB funding for wastewater facility as corrected with the word Dakota after south in paragraph 2. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
Oh, yes, motion passed. Resolution number 20-13. Give you a moment to take a look at it and digest the gargantuan number in the middle of the page. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to read through the Alcester Union Hudsonite and see Hudson's $800 and some odd thousand thing that they're dealing with. I certainly wish we were only dealing with $800 and some odd $1,000. But their $800,000 is basically going to increase everybody's rates by about 20 some bucks. That's after they get the money. They've already been approved some money. So if we think that this is just child's play, we're wrong. This is going to hurt.
Just to clarify, so the public doesn't see this in item number 1, where it says 5.5 million, we're just applying for that. We are not at this point spending that.
That is correct. That's a good point.
We are applying for some financial assistance through these.
To go toward that project, which could be up to 5.5 million. And it's really not written in stone that it will be, because we have not done the camera, the visual inspection of the sewage, or sewer lines, so. They might get lucky, maybe it's only 800 and some odd thousand. Yeah, right.
I'm just hoping it's all.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes,
And this new project, how long is this supposed to last? 20 years, 50 years?
Our current lines that we're looking at replacing were put in the ground in 1939. So they will have a 99 to 100-year life.
So according to your borescope, the camera in the pipes, that's when you're gonna really know a lot more about how much this is gonna cost.
Right. But I gotta tell you, even though that part of it is kind of expensive, where the lion's share of the money is going is all the way down in the corner of the city. And there's a lot of equipment there that is 20-ish years old.
It needs work, yes.
And that lifespan is approximately 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's something you need to be aware of.
Yeah.
The stuff that's underneath the streets or the alleys,
Yeah.
it'll last 100 years possibly. But not necessarily all of the equipment we're putting in or considering putting in down at the sewage plant. So that's a very good question.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Did you
Okay.
ask for a motion?
What's that?
Did you ask for a motion?
No, I have not yet. But is there any other discussion at this time? Hearing none, I would accept the motion for 2020-13.
I will make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-13, a resolution authorizing an application for financial assistance, authorizing the execution and submittal of the application, and designating an authorized representative to certify and sign the payment requests. Do I need to name the representative?
We name it
I think it's named
the mayor
as
or board
mayor or
president.
board president.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Melissa, seconded by Darla, as read, letter B, for 2020-13. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
All vote yes, motion passed. Moving on to resolution 2020-14. Which is, oh yes, adjusting the current rates. And if I'm correct, it is effective December 31st, or January 1st of 2021?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? Yes. That's something to be aware of.
What does major fraction thereof mean? In that first part where we set it to $20.79 per 2,000 gallons, or major fraction thereof, does that mean like,
More than 50% of,
so like more than 1,500 or more than 1,000?
yeah, major fraction there of 2,000 gallons. So you're right, it'd have to be more than, well, really it'd have to be more than 1,500, right?
Some
Or
of our
does-
meters don't actually turn over until they hit the next 1,000 mark. Some of our meters are newer than that and they'll turn over at 100 mark.
So technically speaking, 1,100 gallons is 2,000 gallons, sometimes.
Got it.
Good question. Any other discussion at this time? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for 2020-14.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2020-11, a resolution of the city of Alcester to adjust the current rates charged for wastewater discharge into the city's sewer system.
Before we continue, you did say 2020-11.
That's because that's
Oh,
what's
that's-
here.
It's a typo.
I have 14.
On here it's,
Oh, I
Oh,
read,
I see.
I read it, sorry. I
That
will
was
That's all
my-
right,
redo
that's
that
all
was
right.
my mistake.
I will redo that.
Good point. Letter I under
I
C,
changed it.
under 9, should say motion to approve resolution number 2020-14, not 11. She read it specifically. Could you reread your
Yes, I
motion,
will.
please?
I will make a motion to approve resolution number 2020-14, a resolution of the city of Alcester to adjust the current rates charged for wastewater discharge into the city's sewer system.
I'll second. Go ahead, take it, Marcus
Okay,
did
then
it.
I'll second.
Motion made by Linda, seconded by Marcus. As read, except, or as written, letter I under C under 9 on the agenda, except it should say number 2020-14. Any other discussion at this time? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
All vote yes, motion passed. Halloween, citywide trick or treating. It was brought to my attention that there was no specific thought on that yet, and I think we should at least discuss it. One thing I think we should consider is the fact that they are still intending to have a homecoming parade and so on. So while we are returning somewhat to some normalcy, trick or treat is a little bit more intimate than a homecoming parade. You can stand quite a ways away and still see the parade, but it's difficult to get a piece of candy unless you're right there. So, any discussion?
I know, because I'm probably the youngest person here. When I used to trick or treat and people weren't home, they could stick bowls of candy just outside their door. And so maybe at best, we all encourage our residents who are concerned to either just not participate, which is fine too, because that happens sometimes, or stick a bowl of candy outside, so that way they don't have to expose themselves.
Or have the children wear masks.
I don't know if we can mandate.
Or just have,
Sorry.
just have the mothers and fathers with the children, or whoever that person is, use their best judgment.
I don't give candy, so that's not an issue for me.
I had
Do you have
texted the
money?
mayor. I think Vermillion is not doing it. I don't know how they're going to enforce it. I mean, if I want to turn my light on and hand out candy, I'm not sure anybody can
I
stop me.
suppose if they start an early curfew.
That's the thing. In order to enforce it, we'd have to come up with an ordinance saying that we're forbidding it and have the cops go out and hand people tickets, and I don't think we really want to do that. And I don't think our cops want to do that.
And I just don't think it makes sense, given the fact that so many other things are open and the children
And it's optional. I mean,
Yeah, but they don't have to do it if
They
they're
don't have to do
comfortable.
it,
If
the
their
parents
parents
don't
aren't
have to take
comfortable.
their kids.
or if
so
the person
What do you
don't
think,
have to have
Dave?
your light on.
Thing that-
That's right.
Everybody's talking at once anyway. Come on, Dave, what do you got to say?
Okay, I'm thinking that we should allow people, if they want to pass out candy to trick-or-treaters on Halloween, it should be allowed. And if parents want to allow their children to go out in the public and trick-or-treat, that's totally up to the parents.
Is there any other discussion regarding item number 10?
I do just want to repeat that we should probably encourage all citizens to follow best practices of their
Follow
own
CDC
personal
guidelines.
safety.
That could be in the minutes, although we do know that not everybody reads the paper, not everybody reads the minutes, not everybody, so we better put it on the
Or,
Yes,
board
yeah.
so
and just
that
everyone you see.
people will see it. Yeah, if you
remind them.
talk to people, tell them, please put it in the paper for us, maybe in your article as well, Gordon, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I also agree that
What
we
did
should
you
probably
say?
restrict it.
Said best practices.
Best practice.
Yeah, the
Follow
best practice
best
of
practices.
social safety.
Just setting
Oh,
a bowl of
best
candy
practice
outside.
COVID.
Yeah, I don't want us to necessarily say like CDC guidelines or anything like that, but just follow your own.
Because they change daily.
Yeah, just follow your own best practices that you feel comfortable.
Good discussion. Let's move on to number 11, Finance Officer update.
So at the last meeting, we talked about, there were 2 line items in our budget that we had budgeted for, but had not yet been paid, and the mayor and myself made connections to both organizations. The ambulance was in need of batteries for their power pot, and in talking with the mayor and this money that we were going to give them for equipment could be used for these batteries. So with respect to the fire department, They stated at this time, they are fine and do not need the money we had budgeted for them for their fire school.
I should let you know that I appealed to both of these individuals, both the fire chief and the ambulance or EMS director, and I just explained the city is not in any financial trouble, but in order to keep us out of financial trouble, every dollar we can save, we want to save. So if you don't really need it, chief, fire chief, and he said, well, you know, honestly, we probably don't really need it right now. I'd certainly like to revisit it in 2021, and I said, that's certainly a possibility. I can't tell you how that'll go, but it's certainly a possibility. When I talked to Jeff Nahava, as soon as I started talking to him about it, he knew that there was $1,000 because he had heard us discussing it and saw the discussion, and then he said, these PowerCot batteries are like $898 or something like that. It's ungodly the amount of money that it costs. So it's so close to the $1,000, I said, well, chances are we will just provide you $1,000. Now, I didn't tell him we were going to. Maybe we should just say, pay for the PowerCot batteries, whatever you guys want. But is there any other discussion regarding letter A? Hearing none, I would accept the motion regarding letter A.
I will make a motion to allow $1,000 for equipment for the ambulance, presumably to be used for batteries for the power cot.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Melissa, seconded by Darla, for the entire $1,000 for equipment. They can use it for the batteries for the power cot and or any other equipment that they deem necessary. Any other discussion at this time? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
All yes, motion passed. Obviously, letter B will just be a line item. Letter C.
So, in reviewing the new personnel policy manual, one of the items addressed is health insurance is the full benefit for employees who work 35 or more hours per week. We have an employee who is not taking our health insurance, is on the spouse's plan, and we have not addressed this in our personnel policy manual if we have a plan of reimbursement. They still, even though this employee is not on the city plan, they still have the out-of-pocket expense. So the question I have for you, and I did provide you on the backside what all of our rates are for each of the employees. And the employee that is not on this is Miss Wanda. So in talking, this was a question that actually went around on the listserv a while ago, earlier this summer, and of the communities that responded, this was the answer. So it's anywhere from paying a flat fee, like Viber, $200 for a full-time, $100 for permanent part-time, all the way up to 70% of a single person's plan cost. So,
And that is approximately $689 or $638. It depends really upon a number of different things, the individual's age and or.
it's really just age.
Just age,
They
okay.
don't ask really anything for health anymore.
Okay. But, you know, with life insurance, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but with life insurance, the actuaries look at the sex of the individual as a actuarial, or in the actuarial table. So I don't know if they do that for health.
They do it for health, yes, they do have a rate for men versus for women. But as far as medical conditions or health, that it's not a factor.
Well, Dale's is the most expensive at $848.50. So
And Dale is our oldest.
Dale's the oldest, so
Employee.
that's an age, and male. So, but, we don't need to discuss their age, but, so, we're talking about, well, let me ask, Wanda, let me ask you a question. I think you and I had this discussion earlier, and the number I have in my head is quite a bit smaller than those numbers that we're talking about.
Absolutely.
I believe that you said that if you decided to come on the city's policy.
Correct.
First of all, we should make a note about the fact that it would cost us $600 plus. We'll just say
Yes.
that,
Yes.
$600 a month, or, yeah, $600 a month plus, right?
Correct.
But you said you would save like a little less than $200, 190 something, is that what you said?
$172.99.
Oh, I'm sorry,
If
170.
I went from my family coverage on Bruce's, or whatever family coverage, and if he dropped down to single, which we could do.
Right, because you would be on this one.
Correct.
Now, we got, if that happens, she has the ability to do that. She could do that right now. She could say, I want the coverage. And it costs us $600 some odd dollars. But if she keeps that, it's costing them an extra $175 and some change. So those two numbers are the important numbers for you guys to look at when you're considering what you're going to do in the way of compensation, if you're going to compensate.
And I have been a full-time employee since, what, 2000?
You're 23 years.
Right, but
Oh,
not full-time.
2012.
2012, that's what I thought.
For
For
8 years, full time.
8 years that I've not taken anything or asked for anything. But now I would like to ask you to consider $100 a month.
Did
So
you
why
say one?
100 when you said it was 100 and some?
You know, I would just like to be compensated for part of it.
I don't think,
So Dave, just to let Dave know, did you hear any of that or much of that? She basically said, what she'd like us to consider is compensating her $100 a month. Now, that's what she just said, and Linda's now discussing her opinion on the same statement.
I just think that it should be more than 100, honestly. I mean, it should be what, the difference at least. I mean, that still is a bargain. That's my opinion.
I agree.
That's what I did at my work when George was off. And when we were on, we did it that way.
How much is it saving the city?
Well, you can effectively say probably 6 and some change,
Yeah.
so I don't care. It could even be 700.
Juan would be the same rate as me. So
Okay,
if
so
Wanda signed up our
689.
insurance, she'd be
689.
Right.
So,
For your
Uh-huh.
yearly of $8,268.
yeah, I mean, I just,
Pat, you said the listserv has discussed this before. What are other cities doing?
That's what
It's
they're
not
listed.
voluntary.
$200 for Viber,
$200
full-time, and
is
$100
the
for
least
permanent
amount
part-time,
anybody's giving.
$250, pay the difference of single versus spouse plan,
no,
4.5%
it is saving
wages,
us
so on,
money,
so
a
on.
lot of money.
So all of
A lot
those are
we've
more
saved
than the
over the
100
years.
she's asking for. All of those are more than the 175
Right.
that she's talking about.
Not that I disagree, I'm just gonna say that the difference is technically the lowest, because then it'd only be the 179, right? That's what you said, your difference that you're saying.
$172.99 is the
$172,
difference
so that's-
between
And
family
that's
or
still
single.
Yeah.
less than
That's-
what anybody else is giving,
Yeah.
so it's still
Pass-
saving us a lot of money.
Past practices, this question came up. The employees were given the option where if they could go on their spouse's policy, they went on their spouse's policy, and they were given a small monetary compensation to bring them up, because that is considered part of a wage.
So what's a small
So
monetary?
that's, it considerably less than what's been talked about tonight. Like I said, the former police chief got on his wife's, and like I said, some took compensation, some didn't. But that was a past practice of the council, was to offer a much smaller amount.
Can you like give us like a ballpark figure? 'Cause
I honestly, wasn't involved in that part of it. I know the police chief at that time, his wife had a policy through the hospital.
So this is
How
probably
long
20
back?
years ago.
Yeah, how long back?
Insurance.
Yeah, well, I'm very well aware of what insurance has done. I've been self-employed for a long time, I know what it's done. But I'm just saying, this is what the city has done because the city's not made of money. And like I said, you make your choices. If you want to go on the policy, go on the policy. If you don't, you know,
I know that
That's-
a police officer was also given monetary money on his check to put towards health insurance.
Offset that.
Yes.
Do you know how much?
Do you remember how much that is?
I think that he was given $200. I'm not saying this person that you are referring to, but the other one I think was given $200 a month for his insurance stipend.
These would all be before me, which would be
Yes.
before 2014, well, actually 2012. We didn't do stipends when I was on, and Alderman.
I like the percentage better than the flat rate because that way if insurance costs fluctuate, we don't have to come back and revisit this. I mean, I don't think they're going to fluctuate that dramatically, but they could. If we do a percentage, then we don't have to revisit this every time something happens with the rates.
At the very minimum, I say you have to at least do like the difference. At a minimum, you have to do the difference. I realize you're only asking for 100.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
just.
I totally agree.
I'm like, if we're saving 600 and you're only, like, and you're
Asking for
getting out.
170.
Yeah, I'm like, we're taking advantage by.
Technically speaking, the city of Burke saying pay the difference of single versus family on spouse plan does just that. It fluctuates with changes in the costs.
Sure.
So-
Yeah, that would take care of it, wouldn't it?
That would take care of it. Is there
And
any other?
we do have a high deductible. I mean, it's one of the highest.
Is there any other discussion
We, the city, or
regarding?
we, like your plan?
No, what we pay,
What
so
you
this
have.
is, yeah.
So it would help
Mr.
for
Mayor?
you too.
Yes, just one moment, Dave. I don't know if you're thinking about making a motion, but our legal counsel does have one thing to add. Could you wait a moment, please?
Just real quick, if you're going to do this, and I think it's an okay idea, at some point sooner rather than later, we should probably put this on our checklist of things to do, and it should make its way into a policy manual or some type of resolution that can be passed, just so we have something that says this is applicable to all employees going forward, so that we've got a policy somewhere.
full-time or part-time?
Either or.
It applies to full-time.
Yep, I believe Patty is currently full-time, what was contemplated, right? I'm just saying for the future, so we don't get 5 years down the road and we're all trying to figure out what we did, and what's policy.
So do we
It
need a
does say
motion
full,
tonight then, or do you want to wait?
just a moment. I don't know whether maybe that's where he's gonna go. It does say FT employees right on line C, so. Dave, what were you going to input?
I would like to have Pat, if there were any cities that came back on the list or saying they did not offer any other compensation.
The cities that responded to the question are the cities I have listed. So I cannot answer that question. That's all the information that I got.
I think what you're saying, did you ask any cities, like, did any city respond back and say, we offer nothing?
But all, she said that
There they are,
everyone
right
responded.
there.
I would have written
They all
that.
said yes.
Okay.
So the only ones that responded to the question are those.
Good question.
And then, Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Wanda. Just to clarify, the difference between the family plan and the spouse plan for her insurance is like $179 a month.
Actually,
$172.99.
172.99.
You want to?
Yep.
So I guess kind of what I think Melissa was saying, do we need to fix this now? Or could we wait until the next meeting and have it written up as a resolution to add to, like, policy manual so it applies across the board to all of our full-time
Is that what you were asking, Melissa?
I think that's what I,
Yeah, and the reason why I asked is because I think there still are some corrections that did need to be made from months ago that never got done.
So why not get her done all at
So we
once,
could
eh?
just do all of them at the same time.
Is that an acceptable answer to you right now, Wanda?
I wasn't even expecting anything until the first of the year. or,
Did you
know,
hear that,
whatever.
Dave?
No,
It was suggested that we may wait and do this all at one time and modify the manual so that it reflects the correct information and probably have a resolution saying that this is going to be common practice.
are we planning to do this on or before January 1, so it takes effect in January?
I would say, if we can, that'd be great.
So how are you gonna write?
Yeah, which one?
What verbiage are you going to use then?
That's a good
Paint
question.
the difference between a single versus family on spousal plan?
The one thing that does is it does allow us the ability to
Right.
fluctuate
Yeah.
according to the different plans.
And then something like evaluated annually or something?
I suppose it would have to be.
Annually?
I think whatever your policy section says, yes, evaluated annually. I think we should also have a requirement that if the employee is going to, if the employee switches providers or something like that, where they need to let us know so that it can be recalculated within a reasonable amount of time. Just if, want to get some great insurance where it costs her nothing and we're still paying her the difference, there should just be something in there, and I think that can be cleared up between now and January.
So who's going to write that?
I sure can. I mean, yeah,
I would recommend that.
It's pretty straightforward though. I mean,
Yeah.
really, especially when you look at the way these people did it.
sure. Yeah. And then you wanted it, I don't know, where are we with the manual? You two remember?
It's
We already passed it.
It's approved.
It's approved? Oh,
Eight.
great.
So we just need something that has all the little changes
Okay.
that we want.
That's very easy. Good on that one.
Very easy.
Yeah.
Well, it's only one part. It's the whole
Okay,
thing.
well, that's one part, but then there are other changes that they want to do all at one time. That may require a little bit more.
I have a list somewhere of everything that we talked about that night, that people wanted adjusted.
We'll make it work.
If that could be done possibly by next meeting, then we could at least discuss it and then hammer it out and in the beginning of November, finish the plan.
I can sure try.
You can also send it to me and I have them to-
Do you have a list of?
No, that's what I'm talking about, send me the list and then
Oh.
I'll like work on like half of them so that way you don't have to devote all of your law school time.
So we're working the right direction anyway.
That's what's happening.
Okay, we're going to leave that as unhandled currently, and we've got a plan. We're going to letter D, 2021 budget presentation.
So after our last meeting, I made the changes that were recommended and I gave them to you so that you can, and I punched the holes in them so that you can replace the documents that are in your handout that you currently have with these, because these will be the ones. So the changes on the salaries page were to put Michael Croy at the right salary and to remove some of our golf course employees that are no longer there and replace them with X's, which I did.
And to put Marcus on.
Yes, added Marcus Ireland.
And, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. With respect to the actual budget, the changes were really cosmetic and not so much numerical. So those changes were also made, and I don't know if anyone has any comments that they would like to further talk about.
Well, Melissa and Dave and Vickie were all involved in a lot of this discussion prior to the first reading. Can you look through it just briefly and say to yourself, oh, yes, that's in there, oh, yes, that's in there. And maybe if we get enough oh yeses,
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think, I've made the changes we needed and everything looks good to me.
understood. Is there any other discussion regarding the 2021 budget presentation?
I guess the only thing I have is just going back to the police department, and I don't know if the council talked about this, but the budget committee discussed having a third full-time police officer. We didn't think it was going to be in the cards for this year, but I'm just going to assume that if I'm not back next year, I'm assuming somebody's gonna be in my place, that if somebody else here is on the budget committee at that time, to please consider it then.
Are we still utilizing 2 part-timers to come in?
When we can get them.
Yeah, if they're available.
Yeah, the problem is,
They have
if
full-time
they're not on
jobs
our
too.
time, we kind of are on theirs, when they're free and wanna take.
Those are certified though. Right.
Yes, they are certified.
And we will have a department of 5 if this third person is hired.
No, 3. We would get rid of the part-time budget, we
Okay.
would get rid of the on-call budget, we would get rid of, something else.
You're asking my brain to do a lot of.
I keep looking at you because you were part of it first, and then you weren't, and
So, yes, I believe that if you were not to be on the city council at some time, this will definitely be revisited, because I don't think some of the problems that are inherent are gonna go away, unfortunately.
And just to kind of echo that concern, I think it's kind of negligent of us to say that we have more than our 2 officers. To even kind of rely on the idea that we have part-time people. Although we have the ability to get part-time people, in practice, it just isn't really happening.
Not very
And so-
feasible.
Yeah, well, and not just not feasible, but currently, we could technically get someone and we're not, like, we are not able to get it. So it's not practical to even say that we have part-time police officers. I think to rely on that kind of sentiment and statement is misleading to the public, and it's, I think, a danger to the ability for us to move forward and actually get a third person.
It's really only happened once that I'm aware of.
And I'm sure that was lucky for us to,
I think it was very fortunate.
yeah.
I'm only aware of 2 times when they've actually taken a shift or taken call, and it wasn't even a full 8 hours. Which is, I realize that's the definition of part-time, but it's not consistent, they're not consistently on the schedule. We have to work
They're not
around when they are
employees.
available, because they have full-time jobs that come before a part-time job.
One thing that we may want to just kind of keep in our minds is the fact that we've got this horrible virus, and a number of things can change very quickly. So,
Also, as part of like the research I did into looking into whether or not it would be beneficial to get a third full-time officer, having the ability to kind of relax their hours improves their mental health, which not only do we currently have a pandemic, but there is also currently much public debate and concern about police brutality, and if you can improve mental health, it has shown to reduce the likelihood of a police officer miscalculating the need for force, which greatly improves our liability in terms of any unnecessary and tragic accidents happening. So I think it is truly essential that we get a third officer. I recognize that it might not be financially feasible right now, but we need to kind of make that a priority going in the future, because you don't want to have the tragic accident happen before you get them.
one major misstep would make a third officer quite inexpensive.
And something else to consider is just because there's 3 full-time officers doesn't mean all 3 of them are going to be working at the same time.
Absolutely not.
It's going to divide their time up, and we're going to get rid of the part-time, or the part-time budget, that'll be gone, and the on-call stuff will be gone. They'll still have to take some call, but it'll be a fraction of what it is now.
which will greatly improve like their mental health.
Their morale will improve quite a bit. And they've got pretty good morale considering how beat they are. It's shocking how beat they are.
I think that just also speaks again to how lucky we are with the officers we currently have.
I
That is
agree.
not a guarantee for any officer in the future, which is why we kind of have to take the steps as a council to protect our citizens and to protect our employees.
I agree. Historically, we have had trouble holding police officers. Some of it has been council didn't care for the officer or whatever. Not necessarily the job they were doing, but just differences. And again, we did historically, we did have officers that would come in. We had certified or uncertified that would come in and put in hours. The thing is, scheduling, I was never a part of the scheduling. I never saw a part of the scheduling. Scheduling is an iffy thing, particularly changed over the years.
We don't, I'm sorry, we don't need to get into the minutia of how we're going to do it. We need
It has
just
to do
realize
with
that
what
the
we're doing
budget
now.
that we have right now
It's
is
not, it
being
wasn't
discussed.
minutia then and it's not minutia now. Like I said,
The
it's our
discussion is for
attitude,
the
it's our attitude
2021
with police
budget.
officers and
Uh,
our ability to get them.
Any other discussion on the 2021 budget?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I didn't hear all of that. Was somebody talking about, we can't rely on, like county to give us any help?
No, nobody said that.
No, okay, I was just wondering, because we're paying a lot of taxes to that, so I
That's-
would think when our officers are not on duty, or they're not available, then the dispatcher down at some point should be able to find us a deputy or a sheriff that can get up here and help us out.
I agree, and I think that should something terrible happen and one of our officers do something that they may be suspended from duty for, that will happen. It will have to happen, because it's impossible for it not to happen.
If you call 911, they send it out over the radio. Whoever can get there first is who gets there. It doesn't matter if it's one of our guys, county, or the state. It's whoever gets there first.
Absolutely.
So it's not that they're not covering us. It's when you
It's just
call
a-
the local police department because the dog is barking, or because you don't like the kids in the park, or you don't like this and you don't like that, that's the kind of stuff that they're not gonna come.
Can't be done.
The county's not gonna come for that. Because everything else is gonna take priority over that.
So, again, I ask, is there any other discussion regarding the 2021 budget?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would make a motion to approve the second reading of the City of Alcester 2021 appropriations ordinance.
I'll
Second.
Motion has been made and a second has been twice forwarded.
I'll take it, I'll second Melissa.
Melissa seconded Dave's motion to approve the second reading of the City of Alcester 2021 appropriation ordinance. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
No.
Darla?
Aye.
5 yes, 1 no, motion passes. COVID-19 items, letter E.
So I started my search looking at iPads because we have the iPads at the library. And then the conversation came around on the listserv that A&B Business Solutions had provided the Samsung tablet and with the screen protectors and a cover. And quite a few communities have taken advantage of this as a COVID-ready measure. And some of the finance officers have actually said, I don't know why we didn't do this sooner, because making your packet is so much easier. It'll all be paper, it'll all be in front of you all the time. You'd be able to look up past things without having to bring them. So, I actually felt the price was very doable. It's $279 for those 3 items, and I have 8. my thought process is one of them would go to Parker or our city utility position. So that way, when Parker is out at a grave site, he can look up a site.
Do we have software to do that now?
No, not yet. It's still in Excel.
Would he be able to do that without like Wi-Fi?
He could have the files loaded
Oh,
on
okay.
his, yep,
Then that's fine.
he could have
I'm just
data.
like thinking, like, I've got some good reach.
So,
So the package does not include anything like Excel or spreadsheet?
no, they'd be PDF unless you can get a free app, which there is
There are
apps
apps for.
Right.
that allow you to have
But it's not
Excel and
included.
Word capabilities.
But the PDF is included, so he could have the PDF document, at least he'd be able to review the information.
Correct.
And that's easy to convert to search also.
So, so that is what I provided for you. That's 8 tablets at $279 a tablet.
So, is this the thing that we're being reimbursed for?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I have a question for Pat. Is this coming out of this year's budget or next year's?
Well, it'll come out of this year because this would be money that would be, we would ask for reimbursement from the CARES Act.
Okay. Thank you.
And that money has to be spent by December 30th.
but it does come out of the general fund, Dave.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah, temporarily.
Do you know how long they last, Pam? Did they say it all?
You know, a lot of that's gonna be on the care that you guys give it.
Downstairs.
Well,
I mean-
I'm just thinking our work had iPads,
Mhm.
and they went to all the centers, and we had them for about 4 years, and they're all no good anymore.
Oh,
They weren't updated right, the updates didn't go in right. So now we just ended up throwing them, a lot of them away. So I just was curious.
One of the things that we could do is we could have a maintenance done here. I mean, you bring it here, and I don't care, biannual, whatever maintenance, you bring it in, we make sure everything's good to go, take it home, it's your baby again. So we'd have Wi-Fi here.
Usually we plug them in overnight with Wi-Fi, they update automatically.
Well, theirs wasn't up, it was some.
I think it depends on the
useless.
manufacturer.
Unless you're not an administrator.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I mean,
Well, a lot of times they will update, sometimes whoever sets them up doesn't set it so it can update automatically, and so then if you didn't know how to fix that,
yeah,
which a lot of people don't.
and it
just
was
like
too
think,
late. It was
It's
too
not
late
mine.
for all of them.
That's why I think we would just make sure they
Yeah.
were maintained.
There was
4
a lot
years.
of them. A lot of
When I
them
used
just
to
thrown away.
sell and service computers, 4 years is an 80-year-old computer. They age about 20 years
Yeah, they
per
do.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So an
They were
80-year-old
just
person
old.
is ready for retirement.
Yeah.
Also, I just like did some very quick math, and it's like, again, not a mathematician, but that'd be like $70 a year. That they cover, so that's kind of inexpensive to get kind of the benefits of being able to go
When
anywhere.
we're reimbursed for it, it's
And we're
not.
getting,
Yeah,
We're not
you
gonna
might
be
as well
out
take
any money.
advantage of it.
I
Yeah,
think
we
have
won't be
to
out any
too.
money now, but I'm saying like
We
even
will
like
be
if
now,
you-
but we'll have the money back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when we,
And I just think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I
Are you
do
looking
too.
for a motion?
I think it's an unnecessary expense, to be honest. I don't think, first of all, in a regular meeting, if we're using those for mobiles, we have a problem closing meetings. It's talked about the COVID. That means we're closing the meeting because the people aren't going to have access. The other thing is that if we go into executive session with these, we don't know who's sitting in the room or not. We don't have the guarantee of executive session. I don't think it's, as I looked at the stuff, the games, we don't need that. It does have an EMR, I read that right. But Murphy's Law says that that's expensive, that's gonna be at an expense. We all have computers, we can pull stuff down. As I said, I think it's an unnecessary expense.
well, keep in mind that the reason this topic even came up for discussion is if we are faced with a situation like we had in April and May and June, where, I mean, we met, the council met, but it was in a gym. It was loud. It was hard to hear for a lot of people. So if we do get into a situation where we are forced to be quarantined and not able to come here, then nobody can use the excuse of, I don't have a camera, I don't have a microphone, I can't be a part of this meeting.
They're all exactly the same. That's another reason why we should maintain them on occasion, because I should bring it in front of me, she should bring it in front of her and say, what are you doing with this site here? No, you don't do that with this. This is not for you playing free cell. It's for work, for the city. That's what it's for. Use it for such.
Well, and
Could
just,
Dave be using it tonight?
He could be using it tonight, and we could all be looking at him when he's talking.
Yeah, that's what it is. Or we
But it's not just looking at each other, it's all those
Yeah,
documents.
you'd have to be wearing
Yes.
pants, yes.
or at least position your camera correctly. I think it's kind of essential. I was out in DC for literally our last meeting, and there were documents that were not emailed, which is like fine, but like, you guys referring to a map, I didn't have the map, so I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't know what we're talking about. You're not painting a very good picture for me to just, mentally figure it out, like,
Sorry.
it would be, which is fine, it's not your guys' fault, but like having this, like, access to the documents, or even like, let's say the document doesn't really scan well, and so any one of you here could have done is take a picture and then sent the picture, and at least I have something. I think,
And if you're traveling, you can't take a desktop computer with you.
yeah, I do agree that there might be some logistical issues that we might have to figure out in terms of if every single one of us quarantined, then how do we make sure that we like follow proper procedures for executive session and such. But at least in the sense of like last week or right now for date, like we don't have that problem. We know who's in here when we call executive session because somebody's still physically here. So yes, in the sense that if all of us left, sure, if there's a logistical issue, maybe we'll have to consider that. But that's one minor problem across an infinite number of benefits. Also, they're reimbursed. So it's not even really an expense. Like it's very temporary. So
All right,
I will move to approve the purchase of Samsung tablets from AV Business Solutions for $2,232 from the general.
Marcus went from discussion right into a motion, and he made the motion, Dave.
Yep, heard it.
Okay,
I'll second it.
Linda seconded that motion. Is there any other discussion?
Well, maybe if there are members who don't want one, maybe we can just get 7 or 6 or.
In that sense.
I think we're not all gonna be here all the time,
Yeah.
and we're not all gonna be here
Right.
And even if you've got 8,
after
and that's just one
a
more.
year or two, who knows?
Right.
So,
If you have the full number of 8, let's say somebody doesn't want it, you could then give it to another employee to be like, here, you can actually use the benefit of this
You
also.
don't need to convince them, I'm good. But thank you.
all right, any other discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
No,
Vickie?
No.
Darling?
Aye.
4 yes, 2 no, motion passed. Reminders and updates. There's fall cleanup. It should be noted that in the newspaper, it was listed as December 17th, 2020 to October 4th, rather than September 17th, rather than September 21st.
And I did email Allison. My ad was correct. What I sent her, she changed the copy. So I did ask Allison if we could not pay for that ad, because it was incorrect and what I sent was correct.
We have not yet had a response, correct?
Correct.
But those are the correct dates. Next city council meeting will be October 5th. We move on to number 12.
That is a yes.
Yes, we do need an executive session. Is it pursuant to that SDCL?
For personnel, yes.
Personnel.
I'll move to enter into executive session pursuant to SDCL 125-2-1.
An executive session is necessary. It's been moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is that Melissa?
Yeah, sorry.
Melissa seconded. Marcus made the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
All right.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
I vote yes. We are in executive session at 8:44 PM.
Honestly, down for a half.
Thank you for bearing with us, Gordon. Since everybody's in the room, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Marcus made the motion, Melissa seconded the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Melissa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Linda?
Aye.
Marcus?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Vickie?
Aye.
Darla?
Aye.
Oh, yes, motion passed. We are adjourned at 9:10 PM.
Were we in an executive session?
Went in at 8:44.
No, I mean, the meeting,
Start.
did the meeting start at executive session?
And then it was
No,
No.
it didn't start at 6. It was after 6.
It was 6:03, I
That's what I
believe, if I
thought it
remember
was,
right.
too.
6:03.
If any of you want that material from the South Dakota, let me know. I'll send it.
So you wanted a motion?
George is going to stop up tomorrow.
Do you want the number or what?
Oh, we don't care. No, he said, I asked if he'd stop up.
I'm not, I'm sorry.
Marcus?
What?
Okay.
I'll sign that in 5 minutes.
I
Oh,
can
no.
only take the losers so much. I can only take the losers so much before
We'll hear
it
it
gets to
Monday
me.
night.
And I'm sorry
Just
for all this work tonight.
And then, he'll pick them up.
Doesn't have to be that way.
If she would just, if she would leave it, she doesn't.
You're being recorded, Jane. Thank you.
Welcome back, by the way.
Well, yeah,
Where's the? We don't own the ambulance.
No,
Okay.
but that roster is enticed. She shouldn't be recording in a way.
Okay.
This is what I'm concerned about. And it makes a difference because there are people out there.
Anyway, how are you feeling?
Good.
Good.
She and I haven't.
And the girls did not get sick after all that you went through?
Oh, medical director.
It's okay.
No hospitalization.
Yay! Well, now you have the immunity.
Well, I don't know, I never was positive, I don't know.
Oh, you never did?
No.
Oh,
They
okay.
just told me to assume, but it was false negative because all my
Well,
symptoms
and I,
to that.
Gotcha.
you do me
Okay.
a favor, send
Wow.
So
me,
did I have it?
Wow.
But Frank and I at school, I've had it twice now, so the immunity thing.
tell, just saying, hey, can you look and see?
Wow.
All right, I gotta get.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Workers'
You too.
comp ties this to, because I don't think it does.
See, that was my concern. That's why.
Yeah,
That's
I'll
why
look,
I
I'll
asked.
look.
I was reading that fast.
Yeah, no, I'll look and I'm trying to think of how it would.
Like I said, you know, I was hiring for it. That's just what I would do, because that's being covered under our insurance. And there's that assumption
Yeah.
of, and when this guy's making, if he's making $23, whether he's making 50 cents or $20,
I see your concern, I see where you're going, I would just need to look it up, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, we're covering you while you're saving lives, we're not telling you how to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'll take a look. And as far as me,
Was now completely unannounced, and of course it was my first time, so back on the garage, it comes to me.
depending on what role he's fulfilling, that'd be something for,
So I recommend that
you're on our way
you actually reported like only one of these
It
years.
doesn't guarantee you're getting more comp in a certain situation. If I climb onto this building now, because I think I want to move a bird nest from
Oh,
the
that's really early.
Well, and there's the, okay, so in two, he's over there, and he's in the same position, he's medical director, or EMS director. Okay, the other people, I'm getting people come from there too. So this is what I'm concerned about.
I remember my own.
No, I mean, I can look for you, sir. Okay.
I wanted to give you that.
No, please, and I'll try to read it. Do me a favor and make sure I read it.
Yeah.